Mac and Dan on the couch raise their hands. Nothing to do but make some plans. Popcorn's gone, the night's still young. Star Trek reruns, bang that drum. Bottles open, DS9's in sight. Captain Sisko leads the fight. Federation's calling from TV land. Phaser set to stun on high command. Boldly go where no one's been. Mac and Dan, the conquering team. Reviewing space with snarky lines. Drinking games and warping lines. Boldly go where no one's been. Mac and Dan, the conquering team. Reviewing space with snarky lines. Drinking games and warping minds. Starfleet calls echo loud. Max spills his drink, laughs out proud. Dan's got the joystick, they jump to warp. Star Trek's their ship across the starlit orb. Galactic wars and twisted schemes. Delightful chaos ruling their dreams. Unpolished words and witty flair. Review with mischief without a care. Boldly go where no one's been. Mac and Dan, the conquering team. Reviewing space with snarky lines. Drinking games and warping minds.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Ooh, why is that showing? Oh,
Hello.
let's get rid of that. Hello. Hello. So, welcome to episode 1 of the show formerly known as Board Trekless with Mac and Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
The idea behind this series is we decided we're going to review every single episode of Star Trek that's ever been produced based off of the air date. So we're going all the way back to the very, very beginning, which is why I'm in this. I mean, come on. How could you not want to be in this amazing, TOS era costume, right? Um,
You look very dapper, sir. You look very
Thank you,
dapper.
sir. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. I'm Dan, and that is. You want to introduce yourself for those that may not know?
I'm just some guy. I'm just some
You're
guy
just
on the
a guy.
internet trying to survive
Okay.
in
There you go.
2024.
There we go. We all are.
Yep. No, I'm Mike. I'm good. Are you good?
Okay.
You good
I'm
then?
good. I'm good. I'm good. All right. So, episode technically, how about this? IMDb has it marked as episode 0,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is The Cage. Okay. So, the synopsis for The Cage is this is the pilot to the series that would star William Shatner. Only in this version, there's a different captain, Christopher Pike. And with the exception of Mr. Spock, an entirely different crew.
Hmm.
Now it begins when the Enterprise receives what appears to be a distress message. But when they get to the planet where the message was sent from, they discover that the supposed survivors were nothing more than illusions created by the inhabitants of the planet for the purpose of capturing a mate for the one genuine surviving human. And Captain Pike is the lucky winner. While Captain Pike tries to cope with the experiments and tests that the aliens are conducting on him, his crew tries to find a way to rescue him. But the alien illusions are too powerful and deceptive at first. And I have a dog that's decided she wants to leave the room. Peace out. All right.
So I feel like
So,
we've just discussed the whole of the first pilot episode in the synopsis. Thank you for
well,
joining
no,
us. Goodbye, folks. Goodbye.
no, because I think there's a lot. There's
Oh,
still a lot to
there is a
talk
lot
about.
more. Yeah, there's a lot more going on in that episode than just that. Definitely.
You,
Definitely.
you may. I'm ready. You can launch us whenever you want to.
Good man. Let's go. Join randoms. Watch this.
Oh,
What should be gravity kills right off the bat?
sorry, it's on advanced, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, then
It's
who cares?
still gravity kills though. But yeah,
Oh, I don't. I'm in a little nippy ship. I don't care.
that's fine.
Okay.
I'm in a big not nippy ship. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, first things that one of the first things that I noticed is that
Never mind the
throughout
first thing. You
these,
know, let's get on the tables and let's get out of here. Let's go.
yeah, yeah. One of the
uh,
first things that I noticed about this entire series, especially in the first, I don't know, like 6 or 7 episodes, is they're really struggling to find their footing. And what we think of today as Star Trek, they haven't gotten it yet,
yeah, I mean,
right?
I don't think TOS gets that until maybe at least
The
halfway
third
through the
movie,
first. Yeah,
third movie.
third movie. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a thing. It's a never
Yeah, yeah.
evolving dynamic. The look, the feel, the way they act, the technology, the
hmm
sets, everything. It's
hmm
all subject to change dramatically.
and it does. It does. It changes. I feel like it changes dramatically every
Every
single
single,
episode.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, let's look at. Oh, just talk has gone over that way. Okay. Well, all right. I should be. Anyway. So first things I noticed is Spock is waving his hands at the displays on the bridge.
Yeah, touchscreen thing. It's like hand gestures instead of physical
Yeah,
controls. Yeah,
yeah. I noticed that, but
and
then
they've gone
like
back
I
to
don't
that
know
more
that.
recently with the new Discovery and stuff in Picard with like
Okay.
the 3D panels.
Okay, yeah, but
Yeah,
so they're just he was just waving his hands at the screens, which
yeah.
I found kind of interesting. Uh, obviously, the one question, and I didn't, I meant to look this up ahead of time, but Majorie is obviously she's part of the bridge crew.
She's number one. She's one. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And we one of the things we said is we're not going to not discuss things that happened in Discovery and in Strange New Worlds,
Because they do kind of
but.
tie in. Yeah, they do kind of tie
Mhm.
in. Yeah.
I gotta say, the actress that they cast to play number one in Strange New Worlds,
Hmm.
I felt like they did a pretty good job of
That's
like.
definitely one of the stronger casting decisions. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm. I felt like they did a good job of like capturing Majorie with that decision.
Yeah.
So, um, let's see, what else did I write? I took a bunch of notes here.
Yeah, you took a fun idea for a Twitch show and turned it into homework for yourself. But it's fine. It's good homework. It's fun homework. So
Well, how about this? It was because I knew my when we get to talking about like DS9 and Enterprise, I've seen those a bunch of times, right? I could
yeah,
probably rattle that off the top of my head.
yeah,
But
it's very little
TOS,
effort required.
yeah, TOS, I was like, let me actually write stuff down because it's
If and
been a long,
but yeah, it's been a long
yeah,
time.
it's been a long time, and I'm gonna watch a lot of episodes, and I just wanted to make sure. So one of the things I found really interesting, so they're using. I noticed they use the computer again. This is part of that whole theme of they haven't really gotten the universe fleshed out very well. At
Hmm.
one point in time, they were using the communicator on while they're on the ship, right? But they were using the communicators,
Yeah,
which I found.
instead of using the wall panels, which they later on start to do.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm. And also the technology that they were using in this episode, right? The communicators are huge,
yeah,
like they're
and
big as a.
semi-transparent. Yeah,
Hmm.
semi-transparent as well. Yeah.
Yep, it was like a piece of plexiglass,
Hmm.
with a and the
A metal cheese
obviously
grater on it and a couple of capacitors, like a
yeah,
couple of
yeah.
PCB capacitors that have just been stuck in a plastic plate. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah,
And then the guns were very cool looking, right? The phasers.
yeah. They were something. They were something.
I, d- you know, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind like some phasers like that in Stowe. To be honest with you, that'd be kind of cool. Like some.
Yeah, I mean, like later on in one of the later episodes that we'll be talking about, they introduced the phaser rifle for the first time, and we do get that in the TOS stuff
Mhm.
from Stowe, but you don't ever get that phaser. That phaser option isn't ever in the game.
Nope. Yep. That was an interesting one. Oh,
Yeah.
so another thing that again, this is part of that whole the the fleshing out of the universe that still hasn't happened is, and maybe this is just they just dropped the word later on,
Mm.
but it was, when they start deciding they're heading to Talos, Pike says, uh, set course for Talos. I don't know, whatever it was, 7, I guess. I think it was Talos 7.
Sure.
It's what my lizard brain says it was anyway. And a time warp factor 7,
hmm
which I was like,
But I mean,
oh.
that's as far as I'm aware, that's an accurate term to use, right? Because they are
Mhm,
warping space and time as part of the warp
mhm,
process, so it's not
mhm.
entirely. I
Oh
mean,
no,
it's not
I didn't
entirely
hate
there, but
it.
it's not entirely not there either, right? So,
I didn't hate it. I was like, that's kind of cool, like time warp. Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense
hmm
because they're they're they're
they
they're
are
hauling
traveling
ass.
faster than the speed of light, and they are technically traveling through time as they are traveling through space. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Um, in these episodes, what was it? What was one of the things? Oh, that's that episode with the fancy blue flowers, right?
Yeah,
And
the humming flowers, and I don't know if you noticed, because like when I was watching this for this, I
mhm,
did it with Kirsty, so we watched it
mhm,
together, and
mhm.
she didn't notice that when Pike and Spock grab the flowers and they stop humming, Spock turns to Pike and just erupts into the world's biggest grin, like it's the most off-putting thing you've ever seen. And I had to put it
What
back so
are
she could see it. It's like one of the only two times in TOS history where you see Spock smiling.
the very next note that I put is Spock smiles.
Spock smiles, yeah.
Yeah,
Spock
yeah,
smiles.
it was Spock smiles. Like
Yeah.
what
I
is going
imagine
on
I
there?
imagine there's a fair few because it's like Spock smiles, Spock gets angry, Spock is visibly
Mhm.
confused.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of that in these early episodes, right? There is a lot of that.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's funny because
uh,
like when this pilot launched, that was what everyone's frame of reference for a Vulcan was, right? Like nobody had this preconceived notion of what correct behavior was for that type of character because it was literally
mhm,
the pilot. So
mhm,
also, I don't know if you noticed as well because when I put it back a little bit too far. But when they're coming around the set piece as they approach the flowers for the first time,
mhm, mhm.
um, Leonard Nimoy has quite a substantial limp.
Oh no, I didn't. I
Yeah,
didn't notice that.
so
I
like
didn't notice that.
they move into frame and Pike sees the flowers, and you see Leonard Nimoy as Spock come into frame from behind Pike. Like they've both come around the same bit of set dressing, but at different
Mhm,
times. Now Pike's in the front and the foreground, Spock's in the background. And as he's walking towards the plants where Pike is, you can see a full shot of him head to toe, and he's limping quite aggressively on his left foot, like really aggressively. And then when he does stop at the pedestal where the plants are growing, you notice that he repositions his foot because he's obviously not comfortable. Something's not quite right.
mhm.
And
The, the
I
mules
couldn't
they
find
were making him
anything
wear.
on I couldn't find anything online as to why or how he'd hurt himself. Kirsty suspects that they've maybe filmed it out of sequence, like they do a lot of stuff, and he's maybe
Mhm,
hurt himself in one of the scenes later on doing a stunt because they would have done their own stunts for the pilot,
mhm.
right? And then that scene where the flowers are, first introduced was maybe filmed later, and he's dealing with an injury from throwing himself on the ground or something.
Mhm.
So, but it was an interesting one because I spotted it straight away, and Kirsty was like, I didn't even notice that. Wait, he smiled as well. I was like, yeah, everything's happening in that scene. Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed, and this translates directly into Star Trek Online, is uh, uh,
Oh, I
uh,
just got a wee follow there. Thank you for the follow, Fultz Matronatsikima. Yay! I swear people come up with the best usernames just to wind me up.
there you go. one of the next things that I noticed translates directly into Star Trek Online, and that is the comm badges. And I had I was paying attention to weird things,
Mhm.
right? The comm badge, the symbol. I'm sorry, not the comm. Well, it is comm badges, but the symbols, right? The Starfleet
Yeah, the
symbol.
insignias on the shirts. Yeah.
Mhm. Like I had always wondered where they decided that the science one was going to be this, and the operations one was going to be this, and the command one was going to be that. Oh, okay. Well, that's where that came from because it came like in the pilot episode.
Hmm.
Everybody was wearing uh
Some sort
things.
of insignia. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Spock was in blue in the first episode.
Yeah. In the first episode, it was. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he's in blue in the first episode, right? Right.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
the doctor is like I like how the doctor's
He's
prescription
wearing
is
a
here.
blue. He's
Get
wearing a blue
drunk.
bathrobe, and he's handing Pike shots. Like,
He's like, you need to get drunk. That's what you need, right? That was the solution. Here,
as it
drink this
says,
brandy.
yeah, as it says, like people don't always tell their doctor everything, but they'll tell their barman things that otherwise they wouldn't. And you're like, yeah, yeah, I can get
Uh
on
huh.
that. I can get behind that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, they go through the episode. Pike gets captured. They try a bunch of things um, to free him. I like all the shooting of the door with the different the phasers and then the phaser rifle, and then they bring down.
A
I don't know what's that.
transmitter that allows them to wirelessly transmit energy from the ship to a capacitor and then discharge as a weapon. Literally a ground in place phaser cannon, the first instance of that ever being on screen in the pilot.
And not a single instance in the pilot episode of the ship firing its phasers, which
No, no, no.
there'll be a lot of that. A lot of that. A lot of this happened on the ground. Even when they were on the ship, they were just on the ship. Oh, I think it is worth noting that at least in the Paramount uh, stuff,
Hmm.
they have all the updated exterior shots of the ships,
Okay, yeah,
which they did a really good job when they high res all the ships and
yeah.
stuff
So
and did the
you watched it
exteriors.
on the Paramount Plus. I watched it on Netflix,
Hmm
and in the pilot, if after the pilot, yes, but the pilot on Netflix doesn't have the updated CGI. So it is.
Oh.
So one of the opening shots, because obviously they love their flybys of the ship. So
Hmm
the flyby from the left to the right, and the flyby from the right to the left, and then diagonal across the screen and whatever. And as they come into the ship, into the bridge on the Enterprise the first time, they come in from like an under the secondary hull angle. You know that one where you see the bottom of the saucer from the front,
hmm
and they come up
hmm
from the front starboard side, and they arc over the they arc over the saucer, and then come in through the viewport on the top of the ship. But the angle of it is from the side of the bridge, from where normally you would see Chekhov sitting much later on. So like you come in through the roof of the ship, and it's a side view of the bridge, like from the top.
hmm
And I thought that
hmm
was excellent because I was just kind of like, this is the kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that makes Star Trek, especially like the really campy starting stuff, because it's all completely off.
hmm
But it looks incredible for what it is. Like it looks ridiculous, but you're invested like almost immediately. It's so
I,
funny.
I did enjoy the scene where they go in from the window. That's like the window roof shot thing that they did,
Hmm.
where they went to the bridge. I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool shot.
That's an interesting way to
Like,
come in for it, yeah. Because they didn't come straight in from the front, and I think a part of that is related to when they were doing the ship design. So I don't know if you've ever looked at the original design of the Enterprise, but where um, the turbo lifts onto the bridge are, they're like they're at opposite sides behind the captain's
mhm,
chair.
mhm.
And on the ship model, the part of the ship externally that is meant to be the bridge is not shaped in any way that would work. And And I think it was because, and I remember reading it somewhere. I think it was like in the Star Trek Shipyards book that they released forever ago, and it was for the longest time they actually envisaged the bridge facing away from the front of the saucer. So, so the elevators make more sense in a round room from behind if the room is round behind the captain and pointed in front where the viewer is, right?
Hmm.
But then later on they change that, but they don't change the shape of the part of the hull that the bridge is in. And I love seeing that because they repeat that later on as well, and then as time goes on, ship design and stuff, they fix that. But yeah, yeah, that was a complete tangent. I apologize. Just
No,
completely hijacked.
no, that was great. That was great. I literally only had. I mean, the episode was pretty good. I thought that the actor that played Pike. I'm really curious what the show would have looked like.
If they just continued with him as the lead,
Yeah. Like, what would the
I thought he did a good job. I didn't think he did a bad job with that.
I'm really kind of curious, and I read somewhere this week that they filmed not one but two different pilots for CBS.
Hmm.
So
I wonder what happened to the second
I
one.
wonder what I wonder. Yeah, I wonder what the second one was. And then the next question that I had is: there's an episode later on where the technology gets all wonky again,
Hmm.
and I wondered, was that the second pilot, and they just made it an episode,
I made it an
like
episode.
deeper in the season with what's Shatner as the captain. Maybe they just did. Maybe Paramount just didn't like what's his name.
Possibly,
So
possibly.
so the only other note that I have about this episode is here's is it's going to be a question is moving forward we haven't seen anymore, but like when they start scanning his brain and trying to figure out what he's into,
Hmm.
like what kind of kinky shit uh
Captain Christopher
is
Pike into horses and
yeah.
picnics. Horses and
Yeah,
picnics.
but it wasn't horses and picnics. It was like
Uh,
no, and it wasn't fighting. It was Orion slave girls, right?
yeah,
So they
it
have
was a harem with one Orion slave
yeah.
girl, and yeah.
All right, I turned Mac up. Should I turn Mac up some more, Viral? By the way,
Am I quiet? You want me to shout into my mic?
well, I have you at 130%. I can turn him up some. I can turn you up some
Let it not be said anyone calls a Scotsman quiet, huh?
more.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go.
right.
So the last note that I had was the Orion slave girl. They painted her head to toe green, right?
Except her feet.
Except for the
Except the
bottom.
base of her feet, and
Yeah.
parts of her body where she'd obviously like rubbed up against things while
Rip it off. Yeah.
filming. There was bits where the green was faded through, and you could clearly see. But I mean, yeah, like they're using stuff available to them at the time for the pilot, so they probably used the cheapest stuff they could find.
Except for the bottoms of her feet. So then my question is did we just get the lore that Orion slave girls have white
Have
feet,
green
white
feet, and
bottoms?
because we never see it, that doesn't mean that. Oh my God, you could be right. You
So
could be
I'm
right.
really so every time we see an Orion slave girl while we're doing this, I'm gonna be looking for the bottoms of her
Like for
feet.
the
I'm
bottoms
not.
of her feet. So, in other stuff in relation to the cage, right? I don't know if you really took the time to like look at it, but see the amount of special effect work they did on the Thelosians like shrinking and
Mhm.
expanding heads for that episode.
Yeah.
Like that was quite a concerted effort for a pilot of a show that they had no idea was going to get continued for more than a season.
Hmm.
Like that was wild, and for a pilot episode as well, it's a very involved high end concept, right? This idea of they try and destroy the door, but they don't know if the door's been destroyed, and they don't, but they acknowledge that they can't recognize that their efforts are in vain or not because they don't know if what they're doing is making a difference. And
Hmm.
then, and then later on, obviously, you've got the invasion of a person's privacy through their thoughts and stuff, and then
Hmm.
there's the whole tragedy aspect of Vina did as a survivor, and she did survive the crash, but she's horribly mutilated, and the Thalasians are they're keeping her alive, but they're not fixing her, even though they can. You know,
But
like this
well,
idea
but
that they
here,
have the technology and the ability to make her whole again, but they choose to keep her like that because they want
do they?
slaves.
Do they? Do they
Yeah,
have the technology? Okay, all right. I
I mean,
missed. I
dude,
100% missed that.
they have elevators and they have the capacity to rebuild an entire dead planet. They even say it as much, like we can repopulate the flora and fauna of the planet once you guys have settled. Like they can do all of this and they can't
I,
help
I
her. Like it just
I
seems a bit weird.
wonder if they really can, or if they can only do it in. See, I looked at it as like, oh yeah, we'll repopulate the planet with all the things, but it's really like you're drinking sludge, but the
Mm,
sludge just looks like an apple.
I mean, maybe the whole thing was just going to be a complete like, you know, false flag type thing, right? Like the whole um, it's all smoke and mirrors. They promised them that they're gonna repopulate the planet and stuff, and they're gonna make everything better, and then it is actually all just still an illusion. I mean, I could see
Like
that. I could see that.
that was how I took it. I mean, maybe we're both wrong, or maybe you're right, I'm wrong. I
No
don't.
idea. No idea.
I don't know. I honestly, like I said, I thought it was really good, and going to that whole strange, like we'll get back to it a little later, but that whole Strange New World, um, whatever you want, Strange New World and Discovery tie-in.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I think Anson Mount is really good casting for Pike, and
I like him.
like I said,
Yeah,
I
I
I
like him.
thought number one was really good casting for Pike, and basing it off of the original series, like you're like, okay, and everything that they're gonna go through with the Telosians, I'm like, all right, cool. And I guess right, they put like a buoy up that says like, don't go to Talos,
Yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah. And again, they make a reference to that in the Discovery episode as well, where um they go back and they're like the beacon's been destroyed or the beacon's been repurposed, right, in the Discovery episode, and that's why they go back. But anyway, that's a discussion for when we get to that eventually.
Yeah, that's 100.
Eventually,
That is a
yeah,
100 years from now. That is a
yeah,
100 years from now.
yeah.
Any closing thoughts? Did you have any good quotes? I didn't write down any good quotes for
Good
this episode.
quotes for that episode. I gotta be honest, there wasn't really any. It's I think it's the first instance of us hearing engage as well being used as the key for going to work, because Pike says engage, right?
All right, so a couple other things while we finish up this TFO. Trivia for this one, right?
Trivia.
Uh,
That's just straight
for
off of
this,
IMDb.
yeah, this is straight off IMDb.
The audience can join in
She,
right now if they want to go to
yeah, yeah,
IMDb.
yeah,
They can join in and they can tell us stuff that we haven't read out yet, as if it's their own information.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Gene Roddenberry was told to get rid of the guy with the ear, and he's the only guy he kept. Like he got rid of everybody else. He's like, no, I'm keeping the dude with the ears.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, um, Majel Barrett, obviously, girl. Oh, she was girlfriend at the time, later wife.
Yeah.
Was recast, obviously.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
the original script called for the aliens to be crab-like arthropods, but the budget didn't allow for this. That's one of those things where it's like,
I don't think
I
I've
hate that
ever
every
seen an alien in a TV show or movie that was crab-like or cetacean in origin and actually looked good. So I think it's probably a good thing that it didn't try and make them look like crabs.
Babylon 5, they had the
No,
praying mantis guy,
no,
right?
absolute garbage. Do not.
Oh no.
No, garbage. Right, continue. Trivia. TOS. Go, go, go. Go, go.
Okay, I was just saying, like, it did not air. The first pilot was not aired on TV until 1988.
Wow, really? Holy crap. I didn't realize it was that long. That's impressive.
I didn't realize that either. Wow. NBC didn't like it, called the pilot too cerebral, too intellectual, too slow, and not enough action.
Right, I mean, that's literally what I said. It seemed like a very involved concept for a first episode pilot, right? Everything you see is an illusion. I think I've shot a hole in this glass cage, so there must be a hole there. Show me the hole, and then, sure enough, he's fired the gun and there's a hole in the glass, right? Like,
Mhm.
and then they come up the elevator, and the whole top of the mountain, the whole top of the hill that they climbed inside is just completely blown off because they did in fact destroy it the
Blow off.
first time they tried to rescue him, and they didn't realize.
So here's my question: was that when they were firing the phasers that they blew the top of the
Or was
mountain
it
off?
the mounted gun? That's a very good question. At which point did they actually break through that door at the top of the hill? Right.
Right, right. Because if after they blew a hole in the top in that door, like what were they actually hitting with phasers down
It's
the line, right?
just air. Just a bird flying by just gets absolutely nuked with like all the energy for the Enterprise's engines and a ground mounted cannon. Just like
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
mincemeat. Yeah.
Okay. I can't think of anything else. There wasn't any good. I mean, there's 50 more pieces of trivia, but I don't feel like reading them
Yeah,
out.
I mean, there's always going to be loads of trivia, right? Because as time goes on, people will tell stories and other things will be uncovered. So that list is essentially non-exhaustive,
Long.
right?
Yeah, yeah, really, really, really long. Let's
No,
see.
I think we're good. As overall as a pilot, for what it is, I think it did a decent job of conveying the main concepts, right? The ship design is pretty
Mhm.
solid. Like the Enterprise doesn't really change much overall. Um, in terms of its external appearance, the internal almost immediately changes. Episode 0, episode 1. Um,
It changes a lot. I mean, there's things that happen that we'll get to them, but like conference, every time they go to the conference room, I feel like that we're going to talk about like the conference room is completely different. Like, man, either this ship has a lot of conference rooms, or they couldn't decide on a set design for that. So again, not a whole lot of consistency. Again, it's definitely a show looking to find its way.
Yeah, if the pilot episode sets the bar for the quality to expect and the standards to expect, it was a poor attempt because it changes several times, even just in the first 3 episodes, um, which leaves the audience, I would imagine, at the time. Although I guess if they didn't air the pilot until 1988, the audiences wouldn't have seen those inconsistencies from the pilot until much later. So
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
there's
not so
there's
bad for them. It stands out like a sore thumb for us because we were watching it directly, right? So
Mhm.
cool.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're good for
So,
that one.
all right, season one, episode one, The Man Trap. It originally aired September 8th of 1966. The storyline synopsis is in the series premiere. The Enterprise visits planet M113, where scientists Dr. Carter and his wife Nancy and old girlfriends of Dr. McCoy are studying the remains of an civilization. When Enterprise crewmen begin turning up dead under mysterious circumstances, Kirk and Spock must unravel the clues to discover how, why, and who is responsible. Hmm.
Well, it's clearly the fruit, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
clearly the fruit.
Hmm. I really enjoyed this first episode quite a bit. Like I was like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is a lot of fun. The first thing I actually wrote down was Kirk in
Kirk.
huge because he's doing he's fully committed to Kirk right from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. He's
Uh,
clear that he's
um,
had whatever direction he needed, and he just ran with it from day one,
yeah,
right?
and he, I mean, that character doesn't not it. The way he talked, the way he acted, no, didn't change much.
No.
So one other thing I think we should note, um, everything from 1966 is a little rapey.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. I think it's a
yeah,
consistent theme we're going to be coming across as we talk about
yeah,
the first season, certainly. I
yeah.
noticed
Well,
it. Kirsty noticed it. Um,
yeah, everything's a little rapey from time to time.
mm,
There's a lot of what would be considered sexual assault these days, right?
yeah, inappropriate touching, gazes of
Hmm.
an
Hmm.
unwanted nature. Um,
Hmm. Hmm. There
swooning
was a
over an uninterested second party. Yeah, there's lots of it.
yeah, I definitely feel like that comes in right at the beginning. And somebody the other day when I was announcing I forget who it was, somebody in the was saying like are you going to talk about Gene Roddenberry's creepy perversions? Because
Hmm.
they're all over the show, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. As I notice them, I will
Bring them
definitely
up. Yeah.
bring them up.
I mean,
And
this
I think
episode is perfect for it because it happens several times in quick succession.
Mhm.
Um, and a couple of it, like I felt some of it was actually not just, you know, inappropriate to that degree, but I think some of it was almost a little bit ethnically insensitive as well. Um, but I don't know if you maybe
Mm,
picked up on that, but
are
I
you talking
certainly felt
about
like
the
it did.
stuff with Uhura
Yeah, yeah. You
being
were you were
bored?
just you were just thinking about a man like me, and it's like, what do you mean a man like him? Like, what do you mean by that?
Hmm.
Yeah, and then by the nature, but we'll come to that. We'll come to that bit. So they're sent to this planet to do a yearly health check on the survey team, the doctor and his missus. Seemingly, this is a standard process for all expeditionary and scientific teams on planets out in the middle of nowhere,
Hmm.
is they just send folk to routinely go and check that their health is good, which I guess is a fair point, because anything could happen if they've been left on a planet,
I
unsupervised. A tree could fall on them, they could fall in a hole,
I
they could
love
be
that.
murdered by some
Yeah.
sort of semi-sentient, semi-psychic creature or something. Uh,
I love the fact that um, I love the fact that it was like the greatest medical technology that they could come for being on a hot planet
salt. Yeah.
was salt, right? It was like that was the best that they could come up with at the time. Like was and really honestly, I mean that was salt pills. That was the thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you don't have a basic understanding of the chemical dynamics of why salt is good in a hot environment, people would look at salt and be like, but salt, you know, salt ruins water. Because you think hot planet arid, right? No water, you'd be like, why would you want salt, right?
Hmm.
But then you think about it and you go, right, okay, your body needs salt because as you dehydrate, you
Hmm.
lose it, right? Like it leaves your body, it's part of the process, so you need it. Helps keep you cool. It's part of your sweat. So,
So
but it's
is this the first episode where the joke on the red shirts starts? Is this where the red shirt joke starts,
I
right?
I don't know because the
Was
first
he a red
person
shirt?
to die was wearing a blue shirt. No, his name was
Oh,
Darnell.
yeah,
His
yeah,
name was Darnell, and he was the medical assistant for Bones. And I honestly,
right.
I have to say, by the way, seeing uh, DeForest Kelly for that
Hmm.
in that first shot in that power stance
Hmm.
was excellent because because when you see Kirk right for the first time, you're like, oh look, it's James Kirk. But for some reason, when Bones appeared on screen for the first time, I was like, holy shit, it's Bones! It's Bones! I didn't care about Kirk. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, it's Kirk. Oh my god, it's the Doctor. Let's go.
So,
And then it was technically a Doctor centric episode as well, right? Like the first actual aired episode was uh, a Bones centric episode. So, uh,
I love that one of like in it's episode one of this series, and we're already talking about the planet with all the prostitutes, right? We're
all right,
already hey, you look like a girl I left on the pleasure planet. Like,
yeah,
really?
yeah. I mean, I think that's the
But
first instance of like Kirk TOS. Not very cool behavior. Yeah.
hmm. Hmm.
And they'll try and justify that later on in later Star Trek, where they'll describe the Kirk era as like the Wild West, right?
Hmm.
Like they'll try and explain that and try and explain away that kind of behavior, but it doesn't fit the standard that Roddenberry will try and set later on for the characters and the Federation and stuff like that. Like it kind of stands
Honestly,
out as not acceptable behavior.
or do you
Um,
think he was just trying to get a TV show like on TV?
Oh, absolutely. Like if in an environment where, I mean, let's be honest, right? When did they coin the phrase "sex sells," right? Um, if you're trying to get something on the TV and your competition has salacious content in it of varying degrees, like you're going to be encouraged by production teams and studios and stuff to include that in your own content. Of course you are. So,
Obviously, Salt Vampires, which is, they are in Star Trek Online, but only in
an incredibly
Salt.
limited form. Yep.
Yeah, Saltax Arena, I think, is the only place you
Is
see
he
Salt
is
Vampires
he
anymore.
flying the battle cruiser? Nobody flies the Jem'Hadar battle cruiser. It's nice to see somebody flying that.
I think he is. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
hmm
It looks like he's running a plasma build.
Nice. I definitely am.
You definitely are.
I like the plasma. Um. Oh, so one of the things that I wrote is they upgraded so for this episode 1, the guns are different, like the phaser pistols are different, right? So they've upgraded the gear. They've got the what we think of as the standard TOS era
Hmm.
communicator, right? The hand walkie-talkie or
The
whatever.
flippy out hand walkie-talkie. Yeah.
They have that version of it. They have the what we think of as the TOS phaser pistol. They have all of those things.
Hmm.
And then I actually wrote down: is it better or is it worse than the cool like stuff that they had in the pilot?
So I'll be honest. I think the black glue gun phasers look better.
Okay.
I
All
think they
right.
look better because the ones in the pilot episode were essentially just cylinders with three little silver pokey out bits and a copper band wrapped around it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like it had functional components in it. Because obviously in that first episode, right at the end, one goes to overcharge the weapon to kill everyone, and they're like, "Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can go." But like realistically, you don't need to have moving parts on a weapon that is energy based when everyone knows what a battery can do when it's overheated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if people are watching a sci-fi show, you have to understand that to some degree they have an understanding or an interest in technology. So you don't need to have, a million widgets on a thing to understand that it can do more than just shoot, right? Because I mean, a gun has more than one moving part in it. So,
I
um,
guess.
but
I
most
guess.
guns on the surface don't look like that. So, that maybe I don't know.
Okay. We had we got the um we got a really kind of a creepy joke. I wrote down your own personal yeoman joke and just bleh.
Oh yeah,
That's a little,
yeah.
that was a little creepy.
Mm, mm. Although there was yeoman stuff in the first episode that I didn't really
Mhm,
like either. It was a wee bit like who would have been Eve and stuff, and it's
mhm,
just kind of like
mhm.
stop being weird, please stop
Yeah,
being weird.
yeah,
Like this is hard
uh,
enough as it is with all the campy acting and stuff. I'd like please stop being cringy on top of it.
yeah. Hey, Patchouli, by the way, if you're still here.
Mm,
So we had a first episode with George Takai,
hmm.
but he's in a blue shirt, right? So we still haven't quite gotten that standard Sulu on the bridge.
Is he in a blue
Yeah,
shirt in this one?
he
I,
he is in a blue shirt, and
in
he had
in the Salt Vampire one?
yeah, he's in the Botany Bay
The,
because he,
yeah, he is in the Botany
he
Bay. Yeah, you're right. He's in the
yeah,
Botany Bay.
yeah, you like guys,
I
okay.
like that joke. Yeah,
Uh,
that was good. That's an in joke. That's an in joke. I like that. That's good. He was in
yeah,
the Botany Bay. Yeah. And did you
and
notice that his
and
plant was just a green glove with orange frills
uh,
on it,
yeah,
or pink frills on it?
I, I wrote hand plant.
Hand
Lol.
plant lol.
Which honestly, I feel like I remember there was some TV show that I was probably watching rerun of when I was a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, where there was like a hand plant in it. I feel like there's been a bunch of shows where hand plant has been in it, where it's just a guy's hand going, you know.
Yeah.
Um, all in all, I don't, if I'm being honest, not a not a really good Star Trek episode. I didn't feel like. I mean, it was very science centric.
Not
Um,
overly. No, no. I felt like the idea was slightly more digestible than the Theologian stuff.
mhm.
Um, because it wasn't like everything was an illusion, it was just individuals seeing their own thing. I think it took a wee bit too long for the reveal. Like we're pretty much told straight away that something's not quite right, right? Like every one of the away team see a different person,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes them a wee second for them to have that conversation and then realize, actually, you know what, we weren't just seeing things from different perspectives, we were actually seeing different things. Which I thought was an interesting idea because that's almost like a commentary on everyone has their own perspective on something,
Yeah.
regardless of whether what you're looking at is the same thing or not. And because we have that, people don't automatically assume that when someone says, "Oh, she what was it he said? She looked exactly like it as she was when I saw her 10 years ago last."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And
And
and Kurt looks at him and it's like rose-colored glasses a little bit there,
yeah,
pal. You
yeah,
know.
because like everybody's had that experience, right, where they remember something a specific way and they
How about
can't
this?
get around it, you know.
How about this? Everybody has that every time they look in a mirror.
Hmm,
Like they don't they
yeah,
don't they don't they don't see what they really look like. They see some version of
some
themselves.
versions of. Well, everyone,
Yeah.
everyone, including yourself, has their own version of yourself in their mind, right? So,
Hmm. Hmm.
but yeah, it was an
Up to
interesting
up
one.
to and up to and including how you sound,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Um, then obviously they go back down to the planet to establish what the hell's going on, and they take two crewmen with them this time because Darnell is dead.
Hmm.
He's obviously not
So
been killed by the plant that we said he ate earlier.
mhm.
Um, and then despite knowing that something has killed a crewman and it wasn't the plant that he supposedly ate, they immediately split up. They immediately split up, and both of the crewmen that go off on their own get instantly murdered. Just like just straight up murdered. And one of them was wearing
Well,
a kind of red orange shirt, and the other one was
mhm.
wearing a blue shirt. Now, that was when obviously the sort of vampire takes the opportunity to get on board the ship. It impersonates crewman Green
Mhm.
and transports back to the ship with Kirk and Bones. Was it Kirk and Bones at this point, or was it Spock? It was Kirk and Spock this time, wasn't
Spock. I think it was Spock.
it? Yeah. And and then Crewman Green immediately goes off on a mad goose chase for Salt and harasses Yeoman Rand, because she has, for some reason, is not eating her food, isn't eating food in the mess hall because she's taking food to Sulu.
Right. But I
But she
found I this
proceeds to eat his food like some
right
sort
and
of
this
animal. Like,
the thing and here's a thing that I found really interesting. Right, is what was she eating? She was
it was celery
eating.
sticks. It looked like celery sticks with
Yeah,
something on top of it.
it was like, ladies, keep your figure, just eat some. That's what it felt like to me. It's like, make sure
Hmm.
you just eat your celery sticks. You know,
Yeah,
that was a,
yeah.
it was a little gross.
So obviously, once that's happened, they have their encounter before the elevator with the Salt, and then they go to the Botany Bay. Huh? Well, um, where Sulu gets his dinner. Doesn't comment on the fact that half of it's been eaten by Krum and Rand. Doesn't talk about
Hmm.
it. Just goes, "Oh, here's dinner. Someone's already pre-chewed it for me." Um, and then and then nobody wonders why the plant has been acting weird. Just, oh, the plant's acting weird. Oh, the plant's fine. Yeah, okay. Nobody questions it beyond that. And then the salt vampire as Green wanders off and comes across Uhura
Hmm.
on her own. Now, I don't know if you noticed before this, but she comes off of the turbo lift and is immediately harassed by two members of the male crew.
Hmm.
Immediately. But she turns it on them instantly and she's like, next time you come by bed, you'll need to check the door because it keeps jamming or whatever it is, she says, right? So she very much takes
Hmm.
control of the situation. You go, okay, cool, right, but the situation shouldn't exist in the first place, but okay, sure.
Hmm.
Um, and then the salt vampire turns from, I would say, a young white man to a slightly older black man.
Hmm.
And then and then proceeds to harass and like manipulate Uhura into making herself vulnerable so that, it's gonna steal her soul. But the exchange they have is really bizarre. Like, do I know you? And then the response the Salt Vampire gives is, you were just thinking of someone like me, and then proceeds to start speaking to it in Swahili,
Yeah, that
right?
was a little.
And I'm just
It
kind of
didn't
like,
feel like it didn't feel like Green could talk at all.
no. And then suddenly,
Yeah.
right now, from my understanding, because the Salt Vampire talks about it a fair bit, but they don't really go into it in too much. But the Salt Vampire seems to be better at impersonating a person the stronger the memories or emotions of a person are. Right? So Crewman Green, from what we can take from that, is Crewman Green is a crewman on the ship that everyone knows, but nobody knows him very well. Right? So the Salt Vampire can't pull on memories of him because nobody really has any. Whereas with the Nancy one, the Bones remembers her as a younger woman. Kirk knows her because Bones has told him about her, so like tangential sharing of memories, I guess. And then obviously the Doctor Professor Carr, or whatever his name is, he's also there, so that makes sense. But then out of nowhere, you've just got this really articulate guy that can speak Swahili, and we've got no context for it. It just kind of felt a wee bit out of place.
I also found it's interesting, right? There's a black guy that speaks Swahili on a ship of with a crew of. I wrote
400?
this down. It says
400?
uh,
Yeah.
it was
It's in Charlie X.
in episode one. Actually, they say how many people are on the crew,
Okay.
and they say it's a city of. Oh no, they say it in Charlie X. They say and I don't remember. At one point, they said the crew size was 200, right? So there's somewhere between 400, right?
Mm,
That's not a lot. That's not a lot of people if there's another person that speaks your native tongue.
yeah.
Kind of,
It,
kind of think like,
it's quite a
hey,
small pool of people for that to be a crossover, especially with such a niche language, right? Like, how many people
and
do you encounter on a daily basis that can speak Swahili? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Or just like, hey, there's another guy that speaks Swahili here. Cool, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, no,
So
they don't even really talk about it. He
no,
doesn't even notice that anything's weird.
no. She does though. She does, like, because when they get called to the bridge, and Rand and Sulu come out and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're on our way," and then they call on her and she comes with them. She looks back and is kind of like, "What was that? Like, what was just happening there?" Like, she seems to recognize that something wasn't right, but she doesn't like pursue any kind of investigation into why, because obviously she's been called to the bridge, but at the same time, like, you've just had a very odd experience that doesn't seem right, and you've been called to the bridge, which only really happens in the event of, a sudden change in circumstances or an emergency, right? So you're just kind of like, could this be related? But anyway, maybe I'm thinking about it too much. Um,
Who
but
knows,
yeah,
buddy? Who
it's
knows?
not it's not a great episode, but it's certainly more digestible than space balloon head aliens can make all your wildest dreams come true. But you also can't trust anything.
All right. So, but from it's it is a more digestible episode, but it is a. How about this? It is a more digestible episode, but it is a less adult themed content episode than the pilot was.
Yeah,
The
there was
pilot
definitely
was
still serious stuff in it.
very was very much was a lot more serious than this. I mean, obviously people dying, so it was
Yeah,
serious, but
yeah.
the
I
the
mean,
puppetry and stuff
like four or
was
five people
was
seem to be
very.
dying every episode at this point, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
That you can see why that's why there's such a fluctuation in
and
the,
crew
in the
numbers.
crew.
Yeah, there was 400, but there's been 10 episodes, and now we're down to 300. So,
Right,
um,
right,
one of the
right, right.
things I liked about the episode though was they compared the salt vampires to the buffalo, because
Yeah,
obviously at the time when it was being filmed, there was a lot of discussion going on about, you know, endangered animals and stuff and extinction level events caused by humans and stuff, and that's another subject that they revisit again as part of the original series cast. And what is it? Is it a Voyage Home? Is that Voyage Home? The one with the probe and the whale?
the whales. Yeah.
Yeah. So TOS clearly has connections to this, this discussion. And they compare the Salt Vampire to the buffalo because it's the last
Actually,
of its kind.
I wrote down a quote, right? And one of the quote that I wrote down, my favorite quote of the episode was Kirk, and he says, I was thinking of the buffalo
I
at the
was
very
thinking
end.
of the
Like, what were you?
buffalo. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're like, oh, man, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Kind of cool. Like, did we do the
'Cause
right thing? Did we do the wrong thing? What was the right thing? What's the wrong? I don't know.
yeah, it's a good character development because what you've got is you've got somebody in charge of everyone else who is supposed to be like sure of everything because they have to be.
Hmm.
And in that moment, we get to see him question his own decision making because he understands the severity of the final moments of the last of something,
Hmm.
and that he has been involved at least in the direct events that led to the end of something's existence.
Hmm.
And it's again, it's episode technically episode one, and
Hmm.
while it's not necessarily as as serious or adult or as dark, I guess, as some of the themes in the cage, it is still very much an episode that doesn't seem to shy away from the seriousness of the subject they're discussing, right? Because you could get lost in the, oh, they're under attack by a salt vampire, but the actual discussion was, what are you prepared to do to survive in the face of something that is also just trying to survive, right?
Well, and also we haven't really gotten. It's episode one, right? So they haven't mentioned the Prime Directive.
I don't think that comes in for quite some time, does it?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I don't think we're going to see it for a long time. But um, anyway, I found that kind of I don't know. It's like, okay, so would that have been a violation of the Prime Directive to like wipe out a something or another? Is that
So I think, does the Prime Directive not say to interfere with a civilization? I don't know if civilization counts when there's only one left, right?
right?
And honestly, if push comes to shove, I don't think anybody would say you should absolutely let this one of its kind decimate your entire crew of 200 to 400 people because it desperately needs salt. Like, you are all about to be killed by this creature. Do we expect you to sacrifice yourselves for it? No.
Hmm.
I don't think anyone would ever expect that to be part of the Brown Directive. I don't think that's a thing. Um, yeah.
Any last thoughts on what is known as the man trap?
Um, I feel like I have seen at some point
Oh,
later on a version of that same creature in something else, possibly Star Wars. Because I'm pretty sure I've seen that mask later on, and I don't know, I don't know where, but I've just got this feeling like I've seen it in more than one place.
so one of the things that we talked about the technology kind of jumping around a little bit. It actually says that in the trivia that this was the first episode that was aired on NBC, but it's sixth episode produced, which is why we're going to see the the technology jump back and forth a couple of times, I guess.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Um, let's see, anything else interesting? The Arboretum scene with Rand and Sulu is one of her favorite scenes in the series. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was fun. It was a fun little scene.
Some crude jokes were told in connection with Beauregard and her, even though he tried to reach for her skirt with the puppet. Uh,
Who did?
the puppeteer Bob Baker,
Oh,
evidently.
all right, cool. I mean, it's nice to see that it's not just on screen where they're being inappropriate towards each other, right?
Hmm.
At least the behaviour's consistent. My God. But that kind of explains it as well, right? Like that's how it made it into the writing for the show, is because people involved in the production were into it. So
The English translation of the crewman, what the crewman says to Uhura is, "How are you, friend? I think of you, beautiful lady. You should never know loneliness."
yeah, because we've got the subtitles on, and I'm pretty sure that is what he said. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I didn't turn it. Let's see.
I'm at
Uhura
I'm at
was
that age now where I can't watch anything without subtitles on because my ears turn off. So
that.
so if I don't have words on the screen to help me along, I'll just stop paying attention.
Okay. So, and evidently, this was the first time on camera that Uhura was wearing the red uniform.
I think it was the first episode we see Uhura at all, right? Because it is actually the first episode. So
Yeah.
arguably, that statement is always going to be true because it was
Yeah.
actually the first
Yeah.
time you ever see her. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So,
but then I
yeah,
guess if it was the sixth episode filmed in terms of production time, yeah, I can see why that would still work. Yeah.
so, next episode is episode 2. It was Charlie X.
I hated this episode. I hated it
Uh,
so much.
so the space vessel Antares rescues Charlie Evans from the forbidding surface of the planet Thesis and then hurriedly hands him off to the Enterprise. Soon, mysterious happenings dog the boy who cannot seem to learn certain vital lessons of adulthood. Finally, the humiliated team reveals prodigious psionic powers that could even threaten the survival of the Federation. Who is Charlie, really? And where did he get these abilities?
Well,
Yeah.
the short answer is Charlie's an asshole, and he got these powers because the consistency at this point is everybody's got psychic powers of some kind or another.
So things I wrote down, right?
Mhm.
Materialization, right? Um,
Yeah, they called it transmutation, right?
mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
There's been some interesting thing, like in the transporter room. Again, back to that them finding their footing
Yeah,
on how things work, right?
yeah,
The
uh-huh.
transporter room scenes have all been worse, have all been pretty bad. Though I will say, what was the? There's been something that I watched here fairly recently where I was like, the transporter thing that they're standing on looks cheap. I think it's going to be in TNG. Like we're going to notice that the floor of the transporter room looks pretty cheap and flimsy
Mhm.
comparatively to like those cool glass circles that they were standing on in the NTOS.
In TNG,
Um,
I think it's one solid sheet of perspex with like a decal underneath it, because when they
but
step
it's
on it, it bends.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
terrible. It's
yeah.
terrible. It's terrible, right? Um, this was the episode where they say the crew size is 428 people, but it was in episode 1 they made mention that
Yeah.
this
Ooh,
one gravity kills. Woohoo!
somebody's in the Klingon support carrier.
Are they?
Mhm.
Oh yeah. All right. So this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna be doing a lot of running back and forth. I can see that now.
Well, you're in something nippy. The battle cruiser our man Kurt is in is not. And then we've got Roll as well. They're both kind of quick. That's a decently quick ship.
We'll figure it out. Um, first time you see a Jeffries tube on scene, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. We had great fun laughing at the start of that process where Charlie's just watching people do things and he walks up to a dude who just gets handed a pipe out of the ceiling and the
Hmm.
pipe just goes on forever. Just goes on forever.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, yeah.
what's your purpose on the ship? Oh, people just hand me poles. People just hand me poles and I move them through the ship. That's what I do.
Uh,
That's what I
uh,
do.
this episode was really not very. Um, there were things that I found really like they were laughably bad.
It was like every time Charlie cocks his head back and rolls his eyes into the back of his skull. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
uh,
really bad.
that was laughably bad. Why am I stuck?
You're stuck.
Oh, there
We have
go.
lost two people.
Oh, awesome. We didn't need him anyway.
Well, we've got another one, Mandalora.
Things I thought were like, "Woof, boy, were that bad. The song that O'Hara suddenly just
Oh
breaks
my
out and starts singing.
God, yeah.
Woo.
Oh.
This has the 1960s written all over it, right?
Hmm.
I mean, whoa. Um,
The Rec Room was an interesting one. It's the first time we've ever seen a recreational room that wasn't a holodeck, because obviously in the TOS stuff they didn't have the holodeck at this point.
mhm.
So
I found the rec room was fun.
Spock smiles for the second time.
Yes, I wrote that down. Spock smiles again.
Smiles again.
Still hasn't quite gotten that whole being a a Vulcan down right.
Spock, the famous Klingon, yeah.
Um, oh, there was a thing that I wonder how. Here's my question. So Yeoman Rand, right? She's the Yeoman, the famous Yeoman. How long do you think she's? Well, you think that's a wig, or do you think
Oh,
she
that's a
was
wig.
in?
100% that's a wig. No chance that's her real hair.
You don't think that they checkerboarded her hair like that in the front with that crazy ass beehive? Did you notice the
Absolutely
checkerboard
not.
pattern?
Yes, it did. Absolutely not her real hair. 100% a wig. It has to be.
I mean,
Nobody would subject themselves to that ever, even for, fashion. Jesus.
but it was the '60s, right? So I don't know, but that I wrote down
You can't use
laughing
that
out
as the
loud
excuse for
at.
everything awful about the original series. Well, it was the 60s. It was the 60s.
And then I wrote down laughing out at the checkerboard hairdo, the checkerboard beehive hairdo. I'm like, boy, that's and then I was like, is that going to be a thing? Like we're going to see, because I remember her having a beehive, but I don't remember it being checkerboard, and it comes back. It's in a couple of episodes. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh,
Hmm.
okay. Well, I guess this is a thing. Um, the 3D chess was interesting. Like,
Yep.
okay, so
First
Kirk
instance of 3D chess.
Kirk beats Spock because he plays like a maniac. And you're like, all right, I can appreciate that. And Spock smiles at him and says like,
Spock smells again.
yeah, it says something like, your strategy is incorrect, or whatever dumb thing he said. I don't know.
I'm sure it was very insightful. And then
People were
Charlie has a fit and melts all the pieces because he's a bad loser.
Yeah. Charlie has a fit, melts all the pieces. Let's see. I need some glasses. This was the first time that I noted, and this is a total Star Trek camera trick, 1960s, 1970s thing. Ways highlighted like it was a close up of the face, and the mouth is dark, and the forehead is dark, and
Oh
the
yeah, the
eyes.
window, like the window box and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they start this pretty hardcore in this episode, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and it's not as bad as it gets, like down the line, but it gets pretty bad. So the only other, I don't really have a whole lot of episode other than me smacking people on the ass and being weird.
Yeah, again, we're now moving away from just the verbal suggestion of inappropriate behaviour, but we're now actively engaging in it, and we're using the lens of an adolescent young man who doesn't know any better to get away with it. But in all fairness, they do immediately call it into question and say you need to speak to the captain about why what you've just done isn't okay, because I can't really explain to you why it's not okay. Right? Which I thought was a bit of a cop out, but at the same time I can kind of You know, like if I explain to you why this isn't okay, you might not believe me, but if someone else outside of this situation explains it, you might understand. Like I can, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think nowadays a lady would be like, "You smack my ass again, I'm gonna,
I'm
you know,
gonna.
you
I
reach
don't
over
even
here,
think she'd give you a warning. She would just put you straight
yeah,
on your ass. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You touch my ass again, you're drawing back a dub, fucko. You know, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. So here is a philosophical thing. This feels like Charlie feels like the blueprint for the Q later.
Yes. Yes, because the way in which his powers are manifested, it's like a physical action followed by an immediate out of this world reaction, right?
Mhm.
Like the ball disappearing, or that guy threw me across the mat and he laughed at me, even though this is literally what I was expecting to happen. Oh, he's gone. It's just like, oh yeah, just casually
Yeah,
disintegrating people, you know.
like I said, this felt like the blueprint that was used later on for the Q. And I know that
Mhm.
they said Charlie was some kind of a different alien or whatever.
A Thasian or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
it felt like this is the blueprint they used for the Q, like an all power, omnipotent being. The only other thing that I wrote down this entire episode was still no Chekhov.
Still no Chekhov. Yep. Still no Scotty either.
Still no Scotty.
No.
We'll be getting some Scotty love later, pretty soon. But he's gonna. Wait, was he not in the transporter room?
No. No.
Nope, nope. And
No.
so we're gonna get some Scotty, but again, with the inconsistencies with the show, Scotty's gonna be in a
I think
wrong.
it's episode 4, episode 3 or 4. He appears the first time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so it's coming, but
You know, one of the things I was glad to see go between episode 0 and episode 1, and then
what's
also
that?
episode 2, one of the things I was glad to see go was that really awkward looking young man in the blue outfit standing by the turbo lift door. Right?
You wanted him gone. You were like,
Honestly, yeah, because so we're gonna go back to the cage for this, right? So
uh,
literally first scene of the cage, they're having a discussion on the bridge, and then the captain leaves, right? And the guy with the clipboard turns to the boy at the door, and they both in unison shrug their shoulders at each other as if, I don't know, right? And then every time you see him after that, he's just in the way of the turbo lift doors,
mhm.
right? And people have to walk up to him, he has to move out the way and stuff and all that, and you're like, what is your purpose? And it's clear he's meant to be security or something, right? But he is the most meekest looking little boy ever. And it's like you're not stopping anybody coming through that door. Like it's not a thing that's happening. I was glad to see that go because that
Okay,
for
okay.
irrationally annoyed me that that was a thing.
So I didn't. The guy by the door didn't annoy me that much, but that's okay.
Also, his shirt was stupid. His sleeves were too big.
There you go. Get him.
Get him,
Get him.
get him.
Get the pitchforks. Let's get him. I mean, like I said, I mean, for this, it just felt like here we are. We got the Q. Here's
Mhm.
here's the here's the blueprint for the Q continuum. Because did they kill Charlie? Is that what happened? I
No,
felt like.
no, it was. It kind of felt like that was what was going on, but I think what we actually witnessed was a person who didn't want to be in the situation they find themselves in being forced back into it, and clearly they weren't happy about it because, like, at the end of the day, he was still a child or a young man who didn't know any better, really.
Mhm.
And as he's been taken away by the Thasians or the Thusians, whatever, it doesn't seem terribly fun. He actually sounds like he's in pain, not just like distressed, but actually in pain.
I
Um,
am so
and they
sorry,
all
but I
just
can't seem to not die
no, no,
in
you're
this
good.
CFO.
So I think I think they just took him away. I don't think they did anything to him, but for him it was torture because they're not corporeal. because I think the idea was he was actually a survivor of a ship accident, a crash or something, right? And he lived with these people for so long that they had shown him how to do all these things, and he wanted to be with his own people, but he was so beyond what his own people could deal with, that it just wasn't going to work. But he was still ultimately a human child that just, was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So in the original, so here's the trivia notes, right? There's only a few. In the original script, Uhura was supposed to amuse the crew by being a mimic and like imitating Spock and a couple other crew members. It says.
All right.
Right.
I mean, that's
Method
kind
actor
of weird.
Robert Walker Jr. chose to remain in his dressing room and not interact with other cast members to keep his character as aloof as possible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, sure.
Yeah. During the lounge scene where Uhura sings a song about Charlie, Spock is seen smiling. Yeah, I wrote that down too. Spock smiles again. Still haven't quite gotten that Vulcan. The Vulcans down for that.
Actually stuck in the gravity well. Like, I can't really get forward.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Let's see, whatever. The ship's gymnasium makes its first and only appearance in the series.
How stylish were the red,
Oh, yeah.
the red like leggings that Kirk was wearing? They just take a minute to appreciate that when we come into that scene, we just come into a scene of William Shatner throwing himself backwards onto a mat, and then he's just like, "Yeah, you just do this," and you're just kind of like, what? What just happened? Why are we?"
He's teaching the guy how to take how
to roll. Yeah, no, 100%. But it's like we just come into the scene him mid-roll with no context that they were even going to be doing this. Like,
Right.
you're just suddenly looking at a half-naked William Shatner trying to establish what the hell's going on.
Yeah. So let's see what else we got. Shatner shaved his chest for this episode. Because he's a vain old man.
I mean, he looked good. He looked good.
I mean, yeah. The original title was "The Day Charlie Became God."
Ah, right. Well, there's a reason why they changed that, right?
Sure. This TFO sucks.
It does.
Whole bag,
It does.
A whole bag of dingleberries. Just reason right period. And we're gonna fail. Oh no, we're not gonna fail because we can't fail it, right? We have to.
Yeah.
Okay. See if I can get one more here.
So yeah, and so far, I think Charlie X was probably the weakest episode. Just purely because, I think, in all fairness, I don't think the actor who played Charlie is necessarily a bad actor. I think he was maybe given a bit of bad direction. Because again, we have a character who has some form of mental power, and is has powers beyond comprehension, and is apart from the crew, right? But in some way tries to be part of the crew, right? So
he's looking for a family, but he just doesn't know how to find it.
Yeah. And it's a weird one because it's that old problem of if you write a character that's too powerful, you have to rely on your main characters, your hero characters, to be smart enough or resourceful enough to deal with them, and they were able to do that with the Salt Vampire, right, and Mantrap, but in Charlie X they were entirely reliant on an external entity to come and save them, right? They'd kind of got this dying down where they were like, oh, he's overwhelmed, but it was very clear that he was able to then quickly refocus his attention because Kirk started getting his ass kicked. And
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, like, but as soon as he realizes he can let go of some things, like he's just gonna go straight back to make people disappear. Um, and I think we
Um,
were about to see that, and then obviously the aliens come and save the day, and it kind of makes the crew feel either a little bit incapable or entirely unequipped to deal with the things that they're going to encounter.
well, this was also what year? What year was this? It was 60. It would have been 66 or 67, right? Weren't we in
Hmm.
the middle of a space race, right? Where we were dealing with things that we were maybe potentially completely unequipped to be able to
Yeah,
deal with.
yeah, and that's another thing, isn't it? The whole psychic powers, brain telepathy stuff, like that was a whole thing for some reason. People were obsessed with that in the 60s,
Hmm. Hmm.
so it makes sense that in some way it would find its way into Star Trek, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I I found it to be a little bit annoying that there was too much of a crossover of that. Having that be the catch for almost every bad guy for the first like 3 or 4 episodes was I kind of didn't like it. I'll be honest, it kind of annoyed me that we were reusing the same kind of idea but with just a slightly different flavor every time.
Hmm. So
Um,
here's an interesting piece of trivia that I did not catch. The term United Federation of Planets had not been developed when
the
this episode was made.
UFSA, I think it was, right?
USPA, pronounced
USP
by Captain Kirk as USPA.
USPA, yeah. Speaking of USPA, I was listening to one of my not audiobooks with the real loud on, and at certain times it doesn't know how to say who, so it says WHO, and other times it says THE instead of the,
Mhm.
but it will say who in the right in other sentences, and sometimes it also does it with C. So instead of saying C, it goes SEE. It goes SEE. So just
That's
I
awesome.
just thought that was funny because I experienced that today where something stupid was said that is clearly meant to be it's clearly meant to be said in a different way. Anyway, anyway.
Uh, After this episode, William Shatner only wears tights once more.
Okay.
Uh, Scotty and Sulu do not appear in this episode, although two words of Sulu's dialogue were dubbed in when Kirk calls the bridge from the gymnasium.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway, again, not a great episode, but I thought in the grand scheme of things, uh, kind of kind of just it was
Okay.
okay, right?
Yeah.
So
It wasn't great. It wasn't great.
so the next episode is where no man has gone before, and when and before you don't cue us quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
When the Enterprise attempts to penetrate a space barrier, it is damaged and creates a potentially worse problem. Two crew members, including Kirk's best friend, gain psionic powers that are growing exponentially. This leaves Captain Kirk with a difficult choice, either marooning them or killing them before they get so powerful they lose their humanity and become truly dangerous. Interesting. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Sure, sure. So while Dan's gone, we're gonna talk about the gamma recruit stuff. I have made too many gamma recruits in Star Trek Online, and I do not have enough time in my days and days in my life to max out all these gamma recruits. This was a mistake. This was really a mistake. Uh, let's gossip about him while he's gone 100%. I mean, honestly, all he's done is mute his mic and walk away with the wireless headset on. So, like, he can absolutely hear us. Like, 100%. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Because we are saying nothing but nice things about him. What the heck? How you doing, Clem? You good? Are you good? Are you enjoying the aggressive opinions on original series Star Trek? It's an interesting topic. It's certainly an interesting topic. Yeah, that'll do.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back. Did you have your headset off or were you just muted?
Well, I had my headset off.
Alright, cool, because we were saying nothing but nice things about you while you were
Oh, that's fine.
gone.
That's fine. Um, um, what are you? I'm ready when you.
Nothing but
What
nice
were
things, yeah.
your? Well, I can see the nice things because it's Climb. Hey,
It's
Climb,
Clem.
how are you? Because I'm watching your stream because I'm a nice guy.
Because you're a nice guy.
Yeah. Um, what was it? What were your initial thoughts on this one?
Oh, where no man has gone before. I, I mean, who the hell is Gary, right? Like,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
who the hell is Kirk's best friend Gary? We don't know who Kirk is. Like, let's be honest. At this point, we do not know who Kirk is. We don't really ever get to ban him. He might see all the nice things we have to say. We don't really get to know Kirk until they go on their 5-year mission, right? Um, the to say that Gary's his best friend feels like a bit of a context dump, right? Like we're just kind of expected to catch up with a really good friendship, and within the first like 15 minutes of the episode, that friendship is immediately torn to pieces, right? So you're just kind of like, how good a friend was Gary? Like,
So,
really, how
so
good a friend was Gary? Like, let's be
okay.
honest.
Remember, this is the episode where this is yet another episode where we jump back and forth technology-wise,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right. And again, uh, we jump back and forth cast-wise. Evidently, I'm just looking at this, and I didn't look at this ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Evidently, this is the alternate pilot. Did you just beam up?
I did.
Beam.
Did you not?
Uh, I did not. Oh well,
Oh,
I
oh,
will.
it's advanced royal flush.
Oh, have fun.
Oh, nice. You queue for something as well. I've just noticed as well the stage is still called STO Wednesdays with Mac.
Oh, I
Or it
tried to
was. Oh no,
rename it.
you did rename it. Sorry, I'm a tool. I'm just a tool. Ignore me. Ignore me.
Um, let's see. Okay. Well, I'm gonna read some of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, here's some of the trivia as written by um, the change in Gary and Elizabeth's eyes, accomplished by Gary and Sally wearing sparkly contact lenses. They consisted of tinfoil sandwiched between two lenses that covered the entire eye. Wearing the lenses was difficult. He could only see the lenses by looking down while pointing his head up. Okay, so that
Mm-hmm.
explains a lot because he
Explains a
does
lot.
that a lot.
He does that a
That
lot.
explains a
Yeah.
lot.
He's
Yeah.
got shiny silver eyes, but you don't really get to see them clearly because he's constantly squinting through the
Yeah.
the literal metal that's been put in his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Gary Mitchell makes Captain Kurt's headstone read James R. Kirk. I didn't notice that, but
Hmm.
that's funny.
Hmm.
So he's not James Tiberius Kirk. Let's see. There's a bunch of quotes here. I don't really want to read a bunch of quotes. The phaser rifle that Kurt uses appears for the first and only time in the series. Power can be seen in many preseason promotional photos. Interesting.
Hmm.
The gap in time between filming this and the rest of the series explains some of the apparent inconsistencies, notably the change in the Enterprise architecture.
Hmm. Internally, yep.
The fact that most of the female crews are wearing trousers. Spock has a yellowish skin tone.
And it rubs off on his jumper quite a lot as well. Because every time you see a close up of him, his front of his jumper is all caked with makeup.
And this episode, another piece of trivia, again, something I didn't notice is that Kirk's sideburns are squared off, not his famous pointed one.
Yes, the famous pointed ones.
That's what he wears and everything else. Yeah. That explains a lot of like why there's weird inconsistencies with the weapons and the belt. And some of them, sometimes they're wearing a belt, sometimes they're not wearing a belt, and they they need the belt to Velcro the guns to them. I don't know.
Yeah, because Spock has the belt on him with the handgun at one point, right? When he first says we should kill Gary, before Gary kills us. Which is like
Murder.
murder. It's like we can either abandon him on a planet to his own fate, or we could just murder him dead. We could just murder him dead. I know he's in the sick bay right now, but we should kill this man.
Yeah, well, I even think that he's going like, hey, we shouldn't even abandon this guy on a planet. We should kill this guy because even if we abandon him on a planet, eventually he's gonna get off that planet. He's gonna come and kill all of us. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's gonna be like, yeah, no, I'm done being stuck on this planet with godlike powers. I'm just gonna bounce off. I also like that. I don't know how much of Lower Decks you've watched, if any, right? But they reference this.
Did they?
Yeah. They reference this episode in that. They have an episode where the first officer gets godlike powers, and he becomes a bit of a psycho, and they have to deal with it. It's really well done. And I had forgotten about this episode till we watched it again, and then that reference suddenly made sense. And it was just like they've got a protocol for dealing with crewmen who have suddenly been given godlike powers because it happens all the goddamn time. It's like, yeah.
So,
okay.
So yeah, I wrote down Spock is smiling and he's in gold. That also makes sense. This was a second pilot. One of the things that I found really hilarious is Spock is like, there's a scene where you're kind of sort of close up on Kirk. Kirk's sitting in the chair on the bridge, and Spock is given a report, and dude, he's yelling at the top of his damn lungs.
Yeah.
Like he's just yelling for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
And he asks all of the department heads to come to the bridge, right, at one point in time, right at the beginning of that episode. But where was Bones? Isn't he a department head? Like, I don't understand.
It was a different doctor that shows up. Yeah.
Yeah. It was that same doctor again
from the pilot. Yeah. So that makes sense, right? Yep. That makes sense now.
Yeah. And now, and again, the whole Sulu, the science officer,
and the blue outfit.
Yep. And we're back. And again, the only other thing I wrote down is back to the beta guns again. You know.
Oh, shit.
I like the beta guns, to be honest with you. I know you were like, oh, it's a bit of tinfoil on the thing.
You are allowed to like the beta guns. People are allowed to like what they like.
Yeah, I would like to see some beta guns in Star Trek Online, right? Give me the beta guns. Give me the pilot guns.
Pilot guns.
Yeah, I would like that a lot.
I'm sure if you go to your bathroom right now, you can make one out of the toilet roll tube that's holding the toilet roll together.
I 100% can, I think, right? 100% I think I can. Anything else interesting from IMDb? After the initial attack, wait, is this continuity issues, right? As Kirk, Spock, and Mitchell enter the bridge from the turbo lift, a black crewman wearing a blue shirt crosses behind Yeoman Smith and enters the turbo lift. By the time Kurt reaches the stairs, in the next shot, however, that same crewman is still walking towards the turbo lift.
Hmm. There's a lot of that as well in these episodes where you've got scenes in the hallways where hallways are empty and then
And,
suddenly filled with people as main characters walk into them for the scenes to start. It happens a lot, and it happens on the bridge more than it should when you consider how consistently they are on the bridge.
yep.
Um, you would think somebody would have been on top of that, that editing, but or the stage instruction, but didn't really happen.
There's a struggle when Mitchell, before he's unconscious, and it's obvious he doesn't have enough. The rest of the show, and his stunt double is seen to have enough. After the initial attack, Kurt states that without warp drive, they are now years, not days. The difference would be tens to hundreds of thousands of years, going for many times the speed of light to sublight.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting that this episode starts with them inexplicably going outside of the galaxy's edge,
Right.
as if they've just travelled like a couple of dozen light year, a couple of dozen thousand light years in a matter of days, right? Um, which they later obviously establish is not the case in later
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek shows, where most notably Voyager, where they're over 70,000 light years from Earth, and it's going to take them over 70 years to get back. And it's like, right, well, well, if we can just go outside the galaxy as if it's nothing, then why can't we just travel across it like it's nothing, right?
What's the Delta Vega has a lithium cracking station.
Yes.
Cracking here must refer to cracking large crystals into smaller ones. Okay. Um,
Because they also say that the ore ships that pick up the ore only visit every 20 years. And I thought to myself, that feels like a really inefficient way to mine a planet. Right? Like surely somebody could just rock up and be like, I'm taking over this planet with all your mining equipment on it, and you wouldn't know for 20 years.
mhm. They the girl doctor, Dr. Elizabeth Denner's profile, she's listed as being 5'2".
Hmm.
The actress is actually 5'10", and Gary is 6 foot.
Yeah, and you can tell that she's not 5'2" because she doesn't carry
Yeah.
herself like a 5'2" person would carry themselves.
Right,
She
she's
walks like
pretty
a
tall.
tall person. And if you take the time to actually look at the shape of her as she stands in a lot of the scenes, because a lot of the time she just spends standing at funny angles to the camera,
Hmm.
she's all out of proportion. Like, when people get to a point where they're too tall for how they should be, they just kind of start to look out of proportion and a bit weird. She just looks a bit weird. She looks a wee bit weird. I don't think she was meant to be 5'2". I think she was. She's not meant to be 5'10". She was meant to be 5'2".
The other thing that they talk about is and noticed it is when Gary was unconscious, they put him on the transporter, but
And he just
somehow he could
stands. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, he could
yeah.
just
It was
stand
only
up.
a top half sedative. It only knocks you out in the top half.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or,
Yeah, no.
or is it that the transporter pad has some sort of suspension beam that allows you to hold things in place, so that when you're getting beamed up, your molecules don't try and move out of position?
Hmm.
I just gave you an in-universe answer to a problem that nobody's ever thought
There you go.
of. Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Yeah, it was okay. It was a decent wee episode. Again, we come back to the themes of beings with godlike powers and
Hmm.
the crew of normal people try to overcome that power with you know, instinct and gut reactions and the tools at their disposal. And it's like this man literally choked someone to death with a cable
Mm-hmm.
from the other side of the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was controlling parts of the ship from the sick bay. He he is able to manifest entire oases
Yeah.
out of thin air, right? But we're gonna kill this man with a space laser rifle. Like we're gonna kill him. We're gonna kill him dead. And you're just like, why are we having this conversation again? And we've just had 3 episodes more or less in a row where yous
Mm-hmm.
have all been incredibly ineffectual from start to finish.
So another thing to note, we are 4 episodes in, and including the pilot, right? We're
Ship's
four
still not fired
episodes
its
in.
guns. Yeah.
Ship still hasn't fired a weapon. Not a single weapon.
I don't know. Every time it transports the crew to somewhere, it feels like it's shooting weapons. Honestly, it's so dumb sometimes. It's really hard to get behind.
It's listen. We knew this was going to be.
Oh yeah, I mean the first half of the first season is going to be a mixed bag, right? It's going to be a mixed bag. Um,
I
it
mean,
does
there's not a
eventually
lot
even
of
out.
yeah, there's not a lot of classics in these first few episodes, but there's still some funny. There's very funny, very laughable moments. I found. Um, you know, I had written down that Gary is always looking up. He's always like his head's always cocked to the sky.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
now he couldn't freaking see. He was blind.
Yeah,
You're like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. If you're trying
literally
to
could not see.
you try to look around and see what the hell's going on. Hey, what? Hey, we're talking. I was saying earlier, you were the one Barry's rapey tendencies, right? What wasn't it you?
Who's this?
Eczema.
Ah,
Eczema. Yeah, we have been discussing that in great detail.
well,
Um, Not a lot of the rapey deal in this one, but at least I didn't write down
no,
any.
no, there wasn't really any, was there? Right? There's that initial bit at the start where Gary's like, "Oh, hey man, like let's," and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not interested." And you're, okay, cool. Like right at the start of the episode, and I guess it makes sense that he's friends with Kirk because Gary at that moment is a bit of an ass.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no. Other than that, that one little bit right at the start, it's definitely not as present.
Yeah, like I said, I found the whole thing to be. Yeah, it wasn't the worst episode.
Hmm. Hmm.
Again, I've only, I mean, I remember watching. They had like Star Trek marathon on, one of my local channels when I was a kid. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
I was probably 6 or 7 or 8 or something. That was probably the first time I ever watched the whole series. I've probably seen that episode 4 or 5 times, but back then getting every episode in order was,
It was hard.
you know.
It was the whole thing.
So when you see this, and what was it? It was episodes. It was all episodic content, right? So every episode was its own little universe, and they solved everything by the end. So when you saw this, and runs every night, every once in a while, you didn't put it together that 3 episodes in a row there were people with godlike powers that they had to
Yeah,
fight,
yeah.
and
And you weren't,
basically,
to be fair, you weren't critically evaluating them as a child either, were you? Like, let's be honest.
you were just going, that guy's got silver eyes.
He's got
Ooh.
silver eyes. He can make walls disappear. This guy's really bad at chess. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I did like when he made the whole bulkhead disappear. I was like, ooh,
Oh,
that's
the
kind of
Troll
cool.
X, yeah, because they put him
Yeah.
in the room and then they're like, haha, force field, you sucker. And he's like, haha, Yahtzee. And the whole wall's just gone.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh, okay.
I did enjoy
Yeah.
that.
And they just look at him like, oh, shit. Right. No, you're right. No, no, that's on us. That's on us. We should have thought.
Yeah,
We should have thought better of this. We've literally watched you make people disappear. Why would we assume you couldn't make walls disappear?
yeah, exactly.
We know you've destroyed
Exactly.
an entire spaceship. Why would we not assume you could get rid of a wall? Yeah.
Well, from light years away, they destroyed an entire spaceship. Right? It wasn't even like the spaceship was
Ah,
right next
you're right.
door.
Yeah.
They were like, "We're almost out of communication range, and must tell you that we dumped this psychopath on you because he's danger." Oh, we're all dead.
Oh, we're
Shit.
all dead.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
yeah,
all information that
Where No
I
Man
get
has
it.
gone before. It felt the same in that respect.
Yep.
We
Yep.
have a being with some form of psychic or telepathic powers,
Hmm.
and we have to overcome it. And it's just like no, like this is like the third out of four episodes where that's been the thing. You know, it's not.
Yep.
It's starting to wear a wee bit thin at this point. It's different flavors, like I said, different flavors of the same weekly baddie. All of them have psychic powers of some kind, or the ability to
Yeah.
manifest stuff out of thin air. So
Yeah. But we're about to go in a completely different direction for the next episode.
we are, we are.
So which to be honest with you, out of the five episodes, I mean, come on, there's something to be said for this next one that we're getting to.
Hmm.
Um, any final thoughts on the shenanigans that we just witnessed?
Um, in terms of where No Man has gone before, I said to Kirsty when I started this that
Mm-hmm.
the first season of TOS was very much man versus gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had forgotten just how absurd it was, and as it escalated up to our man Gary, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is literally like this is the equivalent of the bottom of the bucket at this point, right? Because it gets even more insane,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
Toga, 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 right? Like
yeah.
it gets properly
Mm-hmm.
mental.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having watched this episode, I'm actually looking forward to the other ones now because like this one was them. They were still trying to find their feet. They were still
Mm-hmm.
trying out, new set dressings, and they were trying out new ways of dealing with the aesthetics of the crew and how people behave and stuff. We got Scotty for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
was nice to see. And while he was technically in a red shirt, it was
Mm-hmm.
the original red shirts, which were more of like a bronzy orange kind of
Mm-hmm.
color,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, which in certain lights weren't that different from the yellowy green shirts,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was again quite interesting because we're now four episodes in and we've still not got this nailed down. Um, yeah, yeah, not a terrible episode. Certainly better than Charlie X.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and arguably more well put together.
Mm-hmm.
Because it felt like like a consistent story. It didn't feel like it was jumping from point to point to point. Like we followed it from start to finish. Um, I want to see more silver eye contacts. Honestly, though, like I feel like with the because when
You
you
want
did
more?
get shots of that, it looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
most of the time, you didn't get to see it. So that's probably my biggest gripe with it. Other than it's another god entity type story,
Mm-hmm.
it's that we didn't get to see more of Gary's eyes once he was becoming an Esper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you wrapped that up perfectly. I'm not gonna do better than that. So I'm moving on. Season one, episode four, the naked time.
Uh,
And one of the pictures is Sulu without a shirt. It's just great.
Famously that scene where Sulu doesn't have his shirt on. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it says the storyline says this is from the TV archaeologist when Lieutenant Junior Grade Hormelin brings aboard an infection that kills the science team on Psi 2000. The crew of the Enterprise soon find themselves unable to control their predominant emotions. Soon, the entire starship is in shambles and plummeting towards the self-destructing planet. It's excellent. Yeah, Climb says you sound like you're underwater over.
You sound like I'm underwater.
Yeah, maybe I
I mean, I live in
turned.
the UK. There's always water above me, certainly. It's
I'm
always
trying to.
raining,
I don't.
so. I mean, you sound
I
fine to
mean,
me. I'm assuming I sound fine to you.
yeah,
I'm
he
per
sounds.
I'm perfect in my own stream, but not in yours. You you might find that the encoding for Dan's stream is going through a server separate from the Discord one that you're on with me, right? And what you'll probably find is the difference between the Discord call that we're on is clear for
Mm,
us, but
mm,
you'll be encoding your stream locally, and it'll be going out to the Twitch servers, and then from there to other users. You'll probably find that somewhere between you and Twitch and them, it's hitting some sort of buffering wall, or there's like a network issue somewhere. If you F5 Dan stream, it might fix it. I can't promise anything.
I also turned up a couple of the other volumes, like desktop audio, and
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so we are on to episode. What do we say? That's episode 4,
Is this
right?
episode four? No, this is episode 5, right?
Well,
Realistically, yeah, it's
it's
episode
realistically.
4, but it's episode 5 if you include the cage as
Mhm.
episode 0. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But we'll call it 4. We'll call it episode 4.
Hold on. Let me get this minimized. You can cue us whenever.
Sure. Um, this is the second episode with Majel Barrett.
Mm-hmm,
She's in this one
mm-hmm,
again. Honestly, I think she's a fantastic actress. I loved her as every character she ever played because she played the hell out of it, right? Like she always did.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Doesn't she hold? I mean, I think she holds the record of because she's the voice of the computer, so she kind of holds the record. I mean, she doesn't hold the record of on screen, but she definitely holds the record of like her presence being on the most Star Trek ever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which I really liked her. The very first thing I wrote is so how exactly do the bubble wrap suits with the plastic bags on your head that have a big hole in it? How does that protect you?
Well, obviously it doesn't, right? Obviously it doesn't.
Especially when, yeah, especially when you just take. I'm gonna just take my glove off in this crepey room that's 2,000 degrees below zero or whatever they said it was. I mean, it was some obnoxiously.
Some obnoxiously ridiculous number. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was
We
again
want to
maybe a
really
problem.
sell that this is an inhospitable place. The air is made of
Yeah,
fire. The air is made of fire. The ground is made of, the coldest
right,
ice you could possibly imagine.
right,
Every step you
right, right,
take
right.
is hell. Right? Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I I don't know, man. I think we come back to it's early days. They're trying to figure out how they can do these things in a practical way, but also not accidentally suffocate or cast. Because if they
Yeah,
had
yeah.
successfully made a hermetically sealed suit, they could have accidentally murdered someone. Because everything else
Well,
that they've done technically at this point was a ball hair away from being uh, a workplace health and safety claim. So,
right.
I mean, you should just put tinfoil in your eyes. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah, no bother, Gary. Tinfoil in the eyes. Let's go. Right.
Again, we're starting to. I think this is where we start to get a little bit more Star Trek as it exists, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, um, we, we get Bones is back, right?
Bones is back. Yep.
And I think permanently. right?
I think from
from
this point, yeah. I think from this point, yeah,
like
because the only inconsistency is, as you said,
the,
the third
what ended
episode
up
was
being.
meant to be the second pilot, right? So it makes sense that we've got the old Doctor from the cage, but audiences during the original release wouldn't have.
No, no.
I wonder what they must have thought then in that last one when they called like the department heads
Hmm.
to the bridge and Bones didn't come,
Hmm.
because we at least have that point of reference that he is the head of the department in the cage, so it makes sense, right?
Hmm.
But we have that prior knowledge.
Right? Yeah. Like I said, abs is 0 and the max is something. ABS 0 is the max, and that's a 273 or around there. I don't know what that means. Um, yeah, the bubble wrap suits. Scotty is back. Andy's in red.
And he's in
You
red,
know,
yeah.
yeah,
Which during TOS is it operations?
Yeah, it's
Because
operations.
it's security and it's engineering, right?
Mhm. Oh, absolute 0 is the maximum in. Okay, yeah, yeah, I understand now.
I don't know.
Um,
You should meet some of my exes. Uh,
colder than my ex. There is no cold that is colder than my ex-wife's on. All right. So it feels like they're starting to establish Vulcans a little better, right? He
Mhm.
is definitely more Vulcan. Um, as a matter of fact, you know, there's that scene in sick bay, which is amazing, by the way, because it's got the rotating bed where it's the guy steps on it and then they rotate him down.
Yeah,
He doesn't
yeah.
just climb up on the bed. They're like, no, no, stand on this thing, and then we'll rotate it back down. But I don't know if you noticed, they had to, like, the one person had to keep their hand on the top of the bed to keep it from
From
flipping back,
opening, yeah, flipping back open. Yeah, yeah.
flipping him back up. But it definitely feels like they're starting to identify,
Starting to get a
uh,
feel for it.
mhm,
Hmm.
starting to get a feel for what's his name, for Spock and the
Yeah,
Vulcan,
Vulcans in general. Yeah, I mean the
and
argument you could use is that I mean at this point in the story, I don't think they've established that he's only half Vulcan.
yeah, they've mentioned that. Well, so the way that they mentioned it is they mentioned it that an ancestor of his mated with a human. That's, but they don't say it's his mom, which I guess is technically an ancestor of his, but
Yeah, I
it's
mean I'm an immediate
it's his
ancestor.
mom.
I don't know if your mother would appreciate being called an ancestor, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But they at one point in time, I don't remember in what episode, but they said things get trippy when you get to a millionth of a degree. 0 atoms become a Bose-Einstein condensate and start to blur. I'm gonna take your word on it because I don't ever want to be that cold. How's that? Uh, uh, how's that? Um, I love the butter knife.
he's a scientist. Get him! Ah, get
Yeah,
him!
yeah. I loved the scene in the mess hall where the guy's got a butter knife and everybody's like, "Put that down." I'd have been like, "What are you gonna do with that, dickhead?" Like, you can't even
Put that down. Put
put
it
that
down.
down. You're not gonna really hurt yourself with that. Here, take this spoon. It'll be more effective.
Honestly,
You know,
honestly.
there was an interesting scene where they were getting food, right? And they were it was almost like they had to pay for the food or something. It wasn't really described, but he like stuck a thing in, got it, into a slot, then got it, and then pulled the thing. It was almost like he had just paid for his meal.
Yeah, it's explained much later on in TOS, and then it's also explained in other Star Trek later on as well. Each crewman has essentially it's like carbon credits. and it's essentially just you are entitled to X amount of energy from the food system or the X amount of resource per day that you're rationed on, and you're not allowed to exceed it. So
Okay.
like
So
it's
the
explained
fact.
much later on, but it looks just like a normal cash or card transaction like you would have today.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely felt like that was
That
interesting.
was a little bit weird. I thought we had more evolved sensibilities.
But again, they haven't really even talked about that, right?
Yeah, they haven't discussed the Federation beyond that they are a Federation starship. Yeah.
Like we don't know that there's any philosophy behind the Federation at all. We just
Mm.
have they. I don't even think they have still have said planets, right? Because in
Yeah.
the last episode, they said whatever that other the U spa.
You spa.
Yeah, they said they were in Charlie. They said they were part of the U spa.
You spa.
So I don't know. I don't know.
And Charlie, did you
Congratulations on
notice
first.
the badges of the Antares crew were wild?
hmm
Yeah. Uh, wild 434. Dyson
One of the other
points.
one of the other things that I really liked about this episode is obviously it's Sulu, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean he steals the show, right? Like this is his
Right.
episode.
Yeah. Yes, Sulu is just excellent in this, right? And there is a part, when he gets like, let it would feel great if we went to the gym. Come on, let's go to the gym. And he's going off of the bridge, and he does this kooky little head bob thing as he's leaving the bridge, like
Yeah.
it's hilarious, dude. And then obviously Riley was just was just excellent. Um, okay. Yeah, the only other notes that I wrote down on this episode was we've got to risk implosion. It's our only chance, because
Mm.
you know, we think of Scotty as a miracle worker, right? We always
Hmm.
think of Scotty the miracle worker. How long will it take you, Scotty? Give me 4 days. You've got 20 minutes. Aye, aye, Captain. You know what I mean? Whatever it
Mm.
is. But there's been a lot of times where they're like, Scotty, can you do it? Nope.
Nope.
Has
It's just
has
not
been
possible.
nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, nope. Can't cut through a door. Can't do this. Can't. It's like nope. Doesn't what you're asking for doesn't exist. It's not
It's not a
right.
thing. Stop talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you
Yeah.
don't know what you're talking about. I'm the
Yeah.
professional. That's why you're
Yeah.
asking me the questions.
Yep. So then they go, we've got to risk implosion. It's our only chance. I'm thinking to myself, in later science fiction, they would have skipped the ship off of the gravity of the planet and shouted their way free, and it would have been fine, right?
I mean,
Isn't that
sure,
isn't that how
yeah.
this stuff
That's how
actually
that
works,
works.
right?
Yeah, but that's how these
Yeah,
things work in
yeah,
sci-fi. We come up with some sort of solution that involves slingshotting a thing,
yeah.
blowing the thing up. Yeah, that's how
But,
this
but if
works.
but if you're going too fast and your angle of descent is too hard, you
Time
will
travel.
bounce off.
Yeah, you bounce
But you
off.
will bounce
Yeah.
you'll bounce off, right?
Mm.
Um, that was the other thing, time travel. And he says, at the end, they get the time travel thing where they traveled back in time. What was it? They said 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So they've gone 4 days back in time. Um,
Charlie
and
X happens again. Gary's on the
yeah,
horizon.
yeah, yeah. And he says, well, we're not going back to that planet, but we may risk time travel again in the future, right?
Hmm.
And it reminds me of Deep Space Nine, where they were like, that man was, the temporal agency was like, that man was a menace, and they said 26 episodes of manipulation of time or whatever it was, and I'm thinking to myself, Was this number one?
Was this number one?
Right.
Yeah,
Well, this
yeah.
is this is the first one we saw, right?
In grand scheme of
Uh,
things, though, right? If we're thinking about Star Trek as a whole, in terms of like how people abuse time travel, right?
mhm.
This is probably one of the least egregious instances of it. Like we are absolutely screwed. Like this is not happening. We must go back, and they go back. It's like okay, cool, problem solved, and that's it. That's like there's no repercussions of any kind. They just didn't all die. That's it. That's literally it. Um,
A couple of pieces of trivia.
mhm,
Because the show was budget strapped, the thermal suits
mhm.
they were made out of Art Deco shower curtains. That's why they look like they're bubble wrapped because they basically were.
They were bubble wrap.
Um, so this is the first time. This is the only TOS episode where Uhura, Chapel, and Rand all appear together.
Okay, okay.
All
I
right.
didn't know that. Yeah.
And this is the first time we see the Vulcan nerve pinch.
It is. It is. Although I feel like it's a waste, right? Because there's been a number of instances in the last two episodes where that would have been super, super handy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, this was the obviously Chapel tries to seduce Spock, right?
This is, yeah, yeah.
Something they kind of lean into quite a bit in Strange New World, right? Don't they?
Yes, yes, Nurse
Yeah, don't they?
Chapel,
Don't they?
yep,
Yeah, yeah. Don't
yes.
they lean into that? All right.
A wee bit, yep, yep, yep. There are some consistencies across Stranger Worlds and TOS. There is some.
uh, Spock, evidently Spock crying and weeping, his fan mail increased exponentially because they were enthralled with the idea that Spock was had these secret levels of passion and like
Yeah, like
you
that's
know.
wild to me, right? Because they never establish whether Spock is just really boring or
Mhm, mhm,
is like super in control of his emotions.
mhm,
And then in that moment, obviously, like we said, one of my ancestors, human, blah blah blah. Um, but they've still not really nailed home this, like driven home this idea that nailed down that Vulcans are they regulate their emotions, like really
mhm,
regulate them, because it'd just be really easy to have an actor deadpan play a character who has no personality, and the audience is obviously at this point just been like, oh, he's just a really boring two-dimensional character, and then they see this range of emotion in that episode and go, oh my god, he's just misunderstood. It's just like it's just like, oh yeah, 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 he's got more fan mail now because people are suddenly realizing that Spock is actually a living, breathing character that has more than two dimensions. That is kind of funny. Although I wonder if any of them wrote to him asking why he was limping in the cage.
mm. Evidently, Majel Barrett was Gene Roddenberry's mistress in this episode. Obviously, later on became his wife, but
Okay.
was his mistress in this one
Mm-hmm.
still?
Okay.
Yes.
I
Um,
mean, when did they get married? That's a good question. Let's have a wee look. When did Nigel Barrett and Gene Roddenberry?
get married?
Yeah, when did they get married? Let's have a wee look.
I mean, it was a long time ago, but
I mean, he wasn't a bad looking lad in his early days, was he? He was a decent looking lad. That's who.
this aired September 29th of 1966.
So they got married in 1969.
Okay.
He
Okay.
he divorced his wife Eileen Anita Rexroth 1942 to 1969. They got divorced and then he married Majel Barrett the same year.
All right.
And it looks like they were only together for 6 years after that.
Yeah,
So
I don't know.
yeah, that's fine. So um, but yeah,
Any final thoughts on the naked time?
Absolute Zero sounds like the best time ever. Honestly, it really does. You know that way when you climb into bed at night and the bed's cold,
Hmm.
and you're like, oh. And then when the bed gets too hot, you stick your feet out of the covers. Absolute Zero would be like the permanent version of that, just everywhere all the time, right? Or death, whatever. But it's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, yeah. No,
All right. All right.
in terms of my thoughts for the episode, the story was it was a nice break from the this being has godlike powers
Hmm.
trend that they'd had for quite a while for the first 3 or 4 episodes.
Hmm.
Um, I also like the idea that the virus or the pathogen or whatever it was actually, whatever it actually turned out to be, was coming from a planet that was destroying itself.
Hmm.
Um, because the implication there is that this is a place that was normally okay, and then something happened. Something happens that leads to the planet's destruction, and it releases this thing from deep within, essentially. Um, and then,
Sounds
of
like
course,
Pablo.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, so, and then obviously it leads to the best scene in TOS, with Sulu jumping about like a maniac in the
It-
gym. Like everyone knows that scene. Like every single montage you've ever seen of TOS includes the scene of him jumping about like a maniac, just in his trousers with a sword. like, like
and I gotta
every
be
single
honest with you.
montage.
I thought that was, I had in my head that scene was
Hmm.
Terran Sulu. It wasn't Sulu Sulu. It was Terran Sulu. So was, I was, um, I was surprised when I was like, oh, it's in this episode. We get the crazy jumping around like a maniac.
No, I'm glad it surprised you. We have been streaming for 2 hours and 12 minutes, and we are only through 5 of 7
All
episodes.
right, that's it. You ready to go? I'm ready if you're
I'm
ready.
ready to go. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. All right. The Enemy Within
Best
episode aired
episode ever.
episode episode 5. It aired October 6th, 1966. I'll read you the synopsis as written by this guy. While beaming back aboard the Enterprise, a transporter malfunction results in two vastly different Captain Kirks being beamed aboard. His personality has, in effect, been split into two. One Captain Kirk is weak and indecisive, fearful of making any kind of decision. The other is spirited, violent man who likes to swill brandy and force himself upon female crew members. Meanwhile, as Scotty struggles to repair the transporter, the landing party is stuck on a planet with temperatures failing rapidly. Again, we're to okay, so we have two super cold planets in a row.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, I got like I said, Kirk, he leans into this in uh, Shatner. They were just like, just be yourself. I don't know, but they were like, whatever it was that they saw in Shatner, they just were like, just do more of that, right? And he
Mm.
was the best. Um, I loved the two
Uh,
Kirks.
you know what you don't see very often is people flying the allele warbird.
Yeah, there's one right there.
Um,
Um, I love the two Kirks. We got the what did you call it? The window box around the eyes.
yeah, like the light
A little bit of
box, window box,
yeah,
and around the eyes. Yeah.
the light boxing around the eyes. I loved that one. I thought that was great. Um, you know the dog,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I want I want that
The dog with a horn.
I
Uh,
want that costume for Zana. Like for my dog.
uh,
She would look
Bud,
amazing.
go for it. You've just missed your chance for it to be a Halloween costume, but you know
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah.
You've got next year, so get on it.
Yeah. Yeah. The next thing I said is, "Are we going full sexual assault?" Question mark. And then right after that, I wrote "Yup" with two
Oh, it's
exclamation
the
points.
Borg. It's the Borg.
Extra. It's always the board. It's always the board. No one ever expects the board. Um, I wrote phaser set on base cycle. Again, still working on the terminology, whateverness of the show, right?
Phaser set on what?
They phasers set on base cycle.
I mean, that's just standard power, right? Base cycle.
I understand that, but
Yeah,
like later on that'll be one, two, three, or four,
yeah.
something like that, right? But they were still working on the terminology, still working on consistency within the show
Mhm,
and within the universe.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
Kirk the Rage Monster. God, come on,
Kirk the Rage
how great!
Monster. Yeah, I mean, Kirk unhinged is good. Yeah, Kirk unhinged is good, if not a little problematic, but yeah, still good.
Yeah, yeah, little rapey. We did get the checkerboard beehive hairdo again in
We
this one.
certainly did. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. We were just talking about what were we just talking temperatures, right?
Mhm,
I wrote down. Oh, the gun belt is back. That's another thing. So they're back to strapping on the weird sash gun belt thing,
mhm, mhm.
which I found pretty interesting.
The gun belt's an interesting bit of equipment to just randomly have occasionally popping in, right? Because like we've seen them with guns on more than one occasion where they aren't wearing them on their hip. The question is, where do they put them? Where do they put them when they don't have the belt? If the belt's not a permanent part of the costume, where do they put it?
So interestingly enough, there was an episode. Was it I think it was the pilot episode, right? They were like Spock has it, and it's like he opens up his coat and he's got like a cool shoulder holster thing
Mm,
going on, and then he puts it in a shoulder holster. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
mm,
Like that was kind of cool. I did laugh because a Sulu was on the planet, which I found kind of interesting.
yeah, and
It
they
was
just
a
dropped a
hundred.
bar of soap on his face to make it look like it's frozen.
Right, it was 170 degrees below zero. 170, 170. What you know? Uh, at what point in time does like blood just flash freeze?
That is a
Like,
good question. Yeah.
and also they just gave him sheets. That was all they had. That was all the protection that they needed was just a sheet to wrap up in.
Hmm.
Well, I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
Have you never had
survive.
never had to use a thermal blanket before? They're pretty awesome.
I no, I have. Luckily, I've never been in a situation where I've needed
Oh, I
to
didn't
use.
need to use one. I just was
You
like,
just
oh, a thermal
wanted.
blanket. Yeah, I was like, let's have a wee shot of that. No, it was good.
Let's
Yeah.
let's let's make myself into a human baked potato. Okay, all right, I can appreciate that.
Is there any other kind of baked potato?
Um, one of the things I wrote down is they're starting to use the sliders on the transporter for the first time.
Yes, yes. And the sound effects are starting to become a bit more consistent with what we know
Hmm.
later on as well. Yep.
That would be Exit says that would be extreme nitrogen becomes liquid around. Yeah, yeah. It's just like I said. I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies with Star Trek. I mean,
Mm,
especially distances in time, and you know that we'll really get into. I think a lot more in TNG. But it
mhm.
becomes anytime there's a space battle in any of these shows, you're like, geez, pick somebody just define where you should start shooting at a person, because sometimes it's 50 million kilometers away,
Yeah.
5,000 kilometers away. Like it's just different writers.
The consistency
Like,
on things like that are a bit wild. Like, oh, they're right on top of us at 100,000 kilometers, and you're like, is by whose definition is that right on top? Like,
mhm. I love the nippy dog, like the psycho dog. Like just grab a hold of it, it'll be fine, right?
yeah,
Um, and of course, like I said, ragey, rapey Kirk is just the whole thing is. I mean,
it's wild.
it's a
Yeah,
little. it's a little problematic in today's society, but you know, for
Crazy, crazy
1966,
nippy, face scrunched up Kirk is a bit mental. Yeah.
it was pretty excellent. Like just all right, well we're going full rape here. All right, cool. Let's just sexually assault everybody, and
Mm,
it's gonna be fine.
yeah. It was probably one of the more questionable things about the episode, certainly. Um, because up to this point they have been insinuating, you know, unwanted, unsolicited detention and stuff like that in previous
Mhm,
episodes, whereas in this episode it is just straight on assault. Like there's no question about
mhm.
it. So
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's pretty painful. Let's see. Is there any cool trivia from this one? Whoop.
it's a weird one though, right? Like we like in terms of like an episode with a standout story. This one was more fun, even with some of the unpleasant stuff that was
Mhm,
ongoing.
mhm,
It was more
mhm,
fun than anything else, whereas the other episodes had been felt more like, life and limb is at risk.
mhm. We also know now that the way that the show was the lineup was edited was a little weird too, right? Because we got the second pilot as like the third or fourth episode, and things are just strange. Evidently Nimoy came up with the Vulcan nerve pinch all on his own. He was supposed to like give him the kung fu chop on the neck or something. Um,
And he absolutely bottled it, and instead of hitting somebody, he just grabbed them by the neck and they went down anyway. And that was it.
no, no, he said Leonard Nimoy felt that it would be uncharacteristically violent, so he said the peace-loving species like the Vulcans. So he decided that it was going to be a pincher-like grasp that was gonna nerve pinch him.
Okay.
Um, I'm like, ah, that's cool, I guess. Whatever. Um,
We have a science character upgrading these to science on the second stage, like,
it doesn't matter.
and an engineer. Like, guys,
It doesn't matter. We're on
guys,
advanced. We're on advanced, and we're barely even paying attention. It doesn't
what are you
matter.
talking about? I am paying attention.
You're paying attention. I'm not paying attention.
Ah, not
Uh,
really.
evidently, this is one of the few times that you can see that Scotty's uh, that the middle finger on Scotty's right hand is missing.
Hmm.
Um, they gave on top of like the crazy perk stuff, they gave him eyeliner. How excellent! The eyeliner,
Yeah,
crazy, crazy.
because everyone knows anyone that wears eyeliner is just a villain, right?
They can't have those people wearing makeup. That makes them dangerous.
That makes it dangerous.
That's all.
Oh, what's happening over here? How is the satellite already knackered?
I don't know. But I wasn't really paying attention. I told you.
I'm trying to remember, the cubes always come in from the same side, right?
Yeah, they're always over here. Yep, they always come in over there. Let's see. I heard also if you freeze something in a oh man, this is gonna be more of that crazy science stuff. That would make a decent weapon boss Nova. All right, so hold on. Okay. All right, that's too much science for me, buddy. I can't do it. I'd like to do it, but I can't do it.
Too much
I
science.
Yeah, I got a scientist over here telling me how to make crazy weapon-based Nova guns
Oh,
using
right, well,
science.
let's um let's not talk about that on Twitch. Pretty sure that's a TOS violation.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Overall, I thought it was a great episode. I think that, I mean, again, I guess a thing for us to remember because that we're watching 7 episodes a week, right? And we're kind of, I mean, I jammed mine into 2 or 3 days and just
Hmm.
kind of done with it. Took notes over a couple of days. Um, People were watching this once a week. Um, and then if they missed an episode,
That was it.
that
Because
was it. I don't even know.
it was a long time, wasn't it? And before it went to they had reruns.
I mean, I don't even know if they had rerun. I mean, rerun. Did they have reruns? I don't. I
Was Star
honestly,
Trek not famously the thing that was the reason why reruns became a thing?
well, it was. I mean, it was not. I mean, I know the series was not well received. They only did what a couple of years of it, and then everybody moved on, and it wasn't until the 70s and reruns that the show got a huge following, and they started greenlighting movies. So maybe I don't know.
Pass. Pass.
Yeah,
Pass.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. But any are we almost done with this? We got a minute and a half. We're almost done
Yeah.
with this. Any other thoughts on this episode?
Um, Angry Shadow's a good character. Angry Shadow's a good character. I wish we had seen more of him. I feel like this was the start of episodes further down the line of like Tuvix and stuff, right?
Yeah,
This was where
yeah,
the Transporter episode started. So in terms of Transporter episodes, this was probably one of the better ones.
Well, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, are we ever gonna get you know, I don't even know. Like, I guess the net. Well, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of transporter episodes before the end of this thing. But like,
Hmm. Hmm.
are we even? I don't even. I know that they mention it in DS9, but I don't even know if the Riker thing ever gets shown on screen. I don't even know if they did an episode about it.
What you
I guess
mean
we'll find out.
the
Yeah.
Thomas Riker stuff? Yeah,
Okay. I just don't remember.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. Well, when we get there, I'll be like, "Oh, it's the Tom Riker episode. Cool."
Nah, Thomas Riker. I cannot believe you thought that the DS9 episode with Tom Riker was just a throwaway statement, as if anybody was going to accept that we were robbed of a Jonathan Frakes duo episode. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
I don't know. Man, we are just murking, murking these cubes.
Resistance is bleh. Resistance is bleh. It's just toast.
Ah, that was fun. All right. Thank you. We'll leave the map. Any last thoughts on the enemy within?
Um, I preferred the movie.
Okay.
I think I
Okay.
preferred the movie.
I can appreciate that. Enemy within. All right. So episode 6, the last episode we're watching this week, and last episode
Hmm.
viewing.
Hmm.
And what an episode to go out on. Mud's Women. Original air date October 13th, 1966. The synopsis by Gary. After stopping a vessel in space, Kurt and the crew find a very odd captain and a very strange cargo. The captain of the vessel is Harcourt Fenton Mudd, known as Harry to his friends, and the cargo three lovely boarding as rides. Kirk has a
You
major
keep
problem.
cutting out for me.
Oh, do I?
Mm.
All right. Kirk has a major problem while trying to rescue Mudd and the Enterprise's lithium crystals used to power the engines were destroyed. They travel to a nearby mining colony. Sets up about arranging marriages for the women, interfering with Kurt's plan to buy crystals. All the time, the ship's orbit is deteriorating and risks burning up in the atmosphere.
Mm.
How was that?
Yeah, it got better towards the end there. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Yeah, I
Um,
don't know, buddy. I don't know.
oh, there you are. Hello.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Um, yeah, I mean, what did you think? What was your
Um,
initial thoughts on this one?
this is the thing where I think I wrote down that the updated ship models, the exterior stuff, excellent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I love the full-on swashbuckler, like Harry Fenton Mudd thing that he's doing, right?
Yeah, it feels
I,
more like a pirate trader on this one, doesn't it?
I mean, can we say that there's been a couple of actors that have played Harry Mudd now? Is he the best at Harry Mudd?
He certainly set the standard. I think every iteration of Harry Mudd that we've had has been different for a reason, and I think they're all good in their own ways. This was a good way to start, certainly. Certainly a good way to start.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Um, I thought that the whole thing was pretty funny. Um, the women transport in, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the at the very beginning, and what's up with the one girl, right? The green, I just wrote down green dress girl. She's standing facing away from the camera, like looking back over her shoulder, and she doesn't move, right?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't move. She just stands there still looking like, check me out, right? It was very, very strange. They definitely are shooting the shadows, right? A lot of shadows in this one again.
Yeah.
The light box eyes, um, the still haven't really established that the Federation is a cashless society, right? They're anyone running a parser? No, we're just doing advanced too. So no, we are not.
No, we're just chilling, having a laugh while we talk about
Yeah,
uh
ridiculous.
Star Trek
Yeah,
episodes, old Star Trek episodes.
yeah, yeah. I like the whole like just hang the pot outside and let the sand blast it. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, cool. Um, other thoughts I had about this episode.
Other thoughts?
It I, I found the whole like we want your you want to buy the crystals, we want your women thing to be a little yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Still
Mm-hmm.
again problematic in 2020 2024, but
Yeah.
definitely these shows are a product of their time where
I
they
think
aren't.
that's the issue, isn't it? Is they have to appeal to the audience of the time, but at the same time, the show was lauded for being ahead of its time.
Mhm.
But it's interesting
Ooh.
to see, as like a time capsule almost, what being ahead of your time in the 60s was actually like, right?
It's a
Because we
very
looked
good
at now
point.
and like, this is very backwards, and you're just kind of like, well, this was at one point in time very forward thinking. So yeah, yeah. As an episode, I don't think it was a bad one. Um, I like that. I like that we are still referring to the crystals in the engine as lithium crystals instead of dilithium crystals.
Hmm.
Um, I can't remember when that changes. Um, but yeah, very much a case of lithium crystals in this episode. Um, I also think it's the first time they really give
Oh,
us any kind of insight into how the engines are working, right? Like previous to this, it's just a case of, oh, the engines work. You're okay. Yeah, sure.
well, well, there's an interesting so one of the things that I that they're scanning something like the like the data that they're trying to pull down from I don't know what it was, right? Thing. It looks like the resource node gathering game in Stowe,
Hmm.
right? It was like the wave, and they were trying to. I was like, oh look, yeah. So there is some interesting thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the radiation scanner that you do for all the radiation scan stuff, is a
Hmm.
direct rip from a radiation scan from Nemesis.
I'll take your word for it. We'll
Yeah,
we'll get there eventually, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, Really, the only other thing that I put down is that the moral of the story is all girls have to do is believe to be beautiful. That you know, you know
You
what I
can
mean?
be
Like,
you can be anything, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
can.
yeah. But that was the moral of the story. Of
Don't
it.
let
Hey,
your
look,
dreams be dreams.
look,
Ooh,
there's two Dalkinas here.
the rest of Tokyo's, yeah.
Fancy.
Fishy.
Um, yeah, like I said, I didn't write down much else for this episode because it's just.
It's not an episode that is incredibly complex, is it? It's not hard to like wrap your head around. And as time goes on, there's less little like wee silly things for us to like pick up on, like set dressing's not right, or costumes are wrong, or the guns are back, or
Mhm,
you know,
mhm,
like there's going to be less and less of that as we go through. And I think
mhm.
by the time we're at episode 6, right?
Oh, I,
Um, yeah, like they've had enough time to really figure it out,
mhm.
and it's starting to become a bit more consistent already. So, I mean,
Well, I
I
think.
appreciate that from a viewer standpoint. It makes things easier to understand as well. It means that when they do decide to start doing more complex stories, it'll be easier because you'll know what's going on just from looking at the screen,
Mhm, mhm.
rather than having to try and figure out, well, why are they using the tricorder as a communicator? Why are they, you know, why
Right,
are we
right,
referring to phaser rifles when the guy's literally holding a handgun? Like,
right.
yeah.
So let's see. The only other, like some of the other things found that were kind of interesting is that where they talk about these like the yellow episode, the yellow you Kurt is wearing quite a bit.
Mhm.
It actually isn't yellow.
Yes, it's like it's green, right? It's a weird green. That's why his dress uniform is green because it lines up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. This was not a very interesting episode. I didn't think. I mean, it's.
They
I mean, I guess
introduced
they're
an
trying to.
interesting character, certainly. Um,
Did we get him
and
any?
Harry
Did we
Mudd.
get him any more?
In
Let's
TOS,
see.
I don't, maybe,
I
maybe.
feel like there's maybe one more
In fact, you know what? There definitely is, right? Because the next time we see him, he's got a curly mustache, like a proper curly mustache. Um,
instead of the creepy one that he's got now.
Let me have a look. Star Trek Harry
Well, here I'm on the thing. So hold on. I'm on IMDb. Dude. So on the episode, Roger Carmyle was Harry Mudd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whoops. Let's see. Let's see. Harry Mudd. He's only in Mudd's Women.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And then
But
he
I mean,
gets a
I've.
bunch of episodes in Discovery. So, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but what a great character that the character you do such a good job. You got to feel good. You do such a good job with the character that it actually, you know,
I mean, he's
uh,
technically in the animated series as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Well, the next episode, we're done. We're done with the review today. The next episode is. Oh no, we're not. Are we? Yeah, no, that was it.
Yeah, Mads
What
Wim was the
little
last
girls are
one.
made of, right? Right. But this is,
Mm-hmm.
I think, going to be more of the rapey, and then so we're 7 episodes in. They still haven't fired the weapons. Hmm.
Yes, yes. We come back to the hey Zoe.
Hey, Zoe.
Um,
Um.
we come back to the point we've made in the past, which is Star Trek Online seems to be very space combat centric because everyone likes the
Hmm.
laser space pew pews. But
Hmm.
the truth is the vast
Here,
majority of Star Trek
let's move over to
certainly,
our table, then Joey can sit with us.
yeah, yeah. The vast majority of Star Trek is ground based and story based. It's not action based. Um, and I think as time goes on, you see it more and more, and it stands out more and more. And as a result of poor writing, it comes across as a much lesser version of Trek. So
Hmm. Hmm.
in terms of TOS, right, all of these episodes have been ground centric, right? They've either been on the
Hmm.
ship or they've been on a planet, right?
Hmm.
And they've as much as there's lots of crossover in the nature of the baddies, whether that be they are psychic, telekinetic, they have ASP, whatever, godlike powers, inexplicable godlike powers, and then two cold planets, one after the other.
Hmm.
Um, they are still they're episodic content and they're based around a story, not action,
Hmm.
right? And I think from a production standpoint, especially for a show that's just finding its feet, that's clever because it means that you're less likely to lose members of the cast to injuries, right? Right.
Sure.
But it also lets you develop the worlds. So as people are coming into it, because obviously it's episodic, we talked about that, where you could miss an episode 1 week and it wouldn't matter because it doesn't tie into the next one. It means that every episode is its own story, and new viewers, new people that are interested in it can introduce themselves to it when they're comfortable and in a position to, and they don't have to have any really substantial underlying knowledge of what's happened before to just kind of drop in. Like that's the great thing about TOS is that every episode you can just drop in and it is just a wild self-contained story. And then as we move into TNG, there's a little bit more action and the episodes are a little bit more complex in terms of story. And
Hmm.
then, things like DS9, the story it starts episodic and then it
And goes
becomes
serial.
serial. Yeah, which I quite liked. I quite liked that.
Hmm. Me
Uh,
too. Me
but
too.
but Voyager went back to episodic and occasionally did serial stuff.
Hmm.
And then from that point on, everything was serial, right? Oh no, I suppose I guess Enterprise did have episodic
They had,
stuff in season
they
one, and then it
they had
became long,
more serial.
more
Yeah.
serial, like series wide stories, and then that was it after that.
Well, how about
Um,
this? That is our remembrance of it. We will
yeah,
once we core
yeah,
reviewing it, right?
yeah.
Um,
And as the stories went along, you got less story and more action, and the movies were the same. The movies were the same. So,
yeah, we've got 7 more episodes to review next week.
hmm hmm
That should put us at episode. Ooh, and we're gonna get back. Just spoilers, but the episodes that we're gonna get. What are little girls made of? Yeah, that sounds creepy. Miri,
hmm Menagerie Part 1 and 2.
Dagger of the Mind,
hmm
and then the Carbonite Maneuver, Carbomite,
Carbonite Maneuver, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Carbomite Maneuver, right? The
hmm
Menagerie Part 1, the Menagerie Part 2, and then
Conscience of the King.
Conscious of the King. Yeah. So we still might not see them fire the weapons. 14 episodes in, we still might not see them
I
fire the weapons.
think we might see it in the Corbomite maneuver.
Mm,
Even just reading the synopsis here, I think we're going to see them fire the weapons.
okay.
Um, Enterprise is forced to destroy a dangerous, so I think that may be where we see it for the first time. But that's episode 10, 11 if you include the pilot.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Well,
we're quite a bit in. We're quite a bit in.
yeah, we're quite a bit in. Haven't seen a ship fire a weapon yet. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. I honestly I have super enjoyed this. It's been fun. It was
Definitely
fun, like
has, yeah.
going back and looking at these with a the eye of 2024, taking some notes, and then going, yeah, yeah. And if we want to, if you don't want to do seven, if seven, cut it down to like five or
No,
something, let me know.
7 is totally fine. I think, and if we spend 20 minutes to 30 minutes an episode, realistically for 2 hour streams, like we're going to get through between 4 and 5, right?
Mhm.
But I've got no issue doing 7. I've got no issue doing 7. I think as time goes on, we're going to have slightly less to talk about because there's going to be less inconsistencies and the stories are going to become, as they find their feet as writers and as a production team, they're gonna the stories are gonna become much more succinct. Like as an example, we just talked about Mud's women, right?
Mhm.
And we only talked about it for 15 minutes.
I mean, it was a good
You know,
episode,
and
and
it,
Harry Fenton Mudd, he's great, but
yep,
yeah, I mean,
yep,
I just like I said, the moral at the end was ooey.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? It was ooey.
yeah.
It was really ooey.
When you're dealing with the subject matter that they're dealing with, it's very hard to do it with a with a gentle hand, with
Hmm.
like a. It's really hard to do it in a considerate way that doesn't offend people, just outright offends people. And for the time, like we said, this show is very progressive, but by today's standards, it's so not progressive. It's actually kind of funny. Like it's like they got away with this. Are you serious? They got away with this? It's like
So
yeah, they
then the
did. Yeah.
interesting thing will be was TNG considered progressive when it came out, and we're gonna go look at that and go, really?
Hmm.
You know, like
Hmm.
really? Um, um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I am gonna call the stream there for me. My two viewers,
Hmm.
which is just Zoe here and me. Like I
Zoe and
said,
you. Zoe and you.
yeah, it's just me and Zoe. It's just me and Zoe hanging out. I really, like I said, I really enjoyed this,
Hmm.
and I thoroughly am looking forward to doing more of this. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, every week on a Friday. It's going to be pretty solid.
Only thing that may change that is if I change jobs here in the next couple of months, we might have to move it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fine. If we need to move it, we need to move it. Because we're doing multiple streams during the week and then the Saturday stuff, so there are plenty of opportunities to do it. Plenty, plenty, plenty.
all right, well, everybody have a great night. I'm gonna definitely mute myself while I say goodbye.
Yeah, I will also do the same. I will also do the
All
same.
right,
Right.
all right.
Right, losers, thank you for joining us for this attempt, and I would say successful attempt, at our first take on the episode breakdowns for the original series. Um, we're going to be doing another 6, 7 episodes for next week. They are good ones. I do remember some of them, so looking forward to that. Um, like Dan said, if his schedule changes, we'll move it to a different day, but we'll keep you apprised as and when we can. Um, yeah, the plan is to do this all the way through chronologically in terms of air date. So um, we will be doing everything from TOS Animated, TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, Strange New Worlds. And I mean, I guess we could probably do Prodigy and Lower Decks as well. Yeah, probably. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, thank you for joining us. It's been great fun. And I will put on Spotify. And I will see you off. Thank you, and love you, and good night, and goodbye.